American Comics. My Warhammer Simulator Chapter 341 to 360. Chapter 341. Hail Hydra, Omega. Today, we are all Alpha Legion. 3. Open Black Lens Bracket Week 2. Under the guidance of the Old Navigator, you retrieved the target planet preset by Valdi from the armed freighter's navigation logs. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. It is a savage tech world named Sable. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. This place has not yet been incorporated into the territory ruled by the human empire, and has now been occupied by a group of tech oligarchs for countless years. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You decide to continue the mission of transporting munitions, and then do other things after arriving at that planet. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. The Conqueror-class armed freighter has now undergone a major overhaul by you. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Whether it is the living conditions of the sailors or the environmental hygiene, great improvements have been made. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Therefore, all the sailors are willing to obey your commands and have almost succumbed to your personal charm. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You decide to use the long time of the ship's continuous voyage. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Train and arm the sailors on the ship, so that they can quickly transform into a helping hand for you. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Week 3. After repeatedly entering and exiting the crisis-ridden warp space, the Conqueror-class armed freighter finally arrived at the planet Sable under the constant guidance of the Old Navigator. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Under the constant persuasion of your two confidant sailors, Big Head and Old Bones, you reluctantly paid the berthing fee. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. It was a batch of laser weapons that you had pre-screened, and the quality was not very good. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You successfully obtained a local trade permit temporarily issued by the tech oligarchs and the berthing location farthest from the trade location. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You wore that old power armor, put on a gray hooded cloak, and barely concealed your tall and burly conspicuous figure. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You led a group of sailors carrying laser weapons and escorted the remaining munitions cargo onto the harsh surface of Sable, where yellow sand filled the sky. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You quickly discovered that in addition to the harsh environment, the local commercial trade market on Sable was surprisingly prosperous. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Almost any technological item from other alien races in the universe can be easily found here. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket, including the standard issue bolter guns of the human empire, as well as the damaged shuriken catapults of the unknown Eldar, and other similar alien weapons. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Even your overly tall figure, placed in the special environment where chattering green-skinned orcs, shining Tau, and other alien races are everywhere, is not too conspicuous. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You even inadvertently ran into the famous galactic free trader. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. A diminutive alien race wearing black cloaks, called the Strixus, was haggling with several human rogue traders, occasionally bursting into a piercingly sharp laughter. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You couldn't help but clench an alien short spear inserted behind your waist. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You also subconsciously reacted and slowly released your palm. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Just then, a sudden gust of sand swept over your tall body, accidentally lifting your gray hood. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. Some unknown aliens and humans inside the trade market inadvertently saw your seemingly shining bronze bald head. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You put the hood back on and quickly covered your face. Close Black Lens Bracket. Open Black Lens Bracket. You scanned the surrounding environment warily, and after finding that it had not attracted too much attention from alien creatures, close Black Lens Bracket. Open black lens bracket. You couldn't help but take a deep breath and continued to lead your sailors to transport the munitions cargo. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Your current identity is just an anonymous rogue trader, and perhaps you will also play the role of a space pirate later. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This planet is not the territory of the human empire. You must learn to do as the Romans do and be unobtrusive to survive. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. According to the information guidance left by the Big Sucker Valve, you successfully found the rogue trader who was dealing munitions with the armed freighter at the deepest part of the trade market. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The other party was a human subspecies whose exact age could not be distinguished from the outside, with overly pale skin and a pair of naturally colorless transparent eyes. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You hesitated slightly, but still stepped into the store and tried to talk to the other party. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You originally thought that temporarily changing the trading party would cause some unnecessary trouble in the delivery of goods. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, the pale-skinned human subspecies rogue trader seemed to have been psychologically prepared for Valdi's disappearance. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. He even thoughtfully took the initiative to increase the price of the goods by 10%. According to him, this was to celebrate your escape from the exploitation of the miser Valdi, and to celebrate the birth of a new rogue trader. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You expressed your gratitude to the other party, and at the same time, you also planned to obtain some necessary supplies and information through the other party. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You successfully used this cost-free munitions cargo. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In exchange for a batch of old servitors that could continue to be exploited and enough food supplies to sustain the armed freighter for 5 years. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Just as you wanted to ask the pale-skinned rogue trader if he had bolter weapons from the human empire, or other powerful single-soldier alien technology. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Captain, something big happened. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The confidant sailor, Big Head, who had been standing guard outside the rogue trader's shop, suddenly rushed in a panic, shouting loudly at you, out of breath. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In the sky, oh, damn it, alien invasion. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You blinked your eyes in confusion. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You subconsciously exchanged a glance with the pale-skinned rogue trader in front of you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You drew 2 alien short spears from behind your waist and gripped them tightly in your palms. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You then activated your power armor and rushed out of the door, onto the sand-swept street. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You suddenly raised your neck and tried your best to look towards the yellow sand-filled sky above. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, terrifying alien warships, each several kilometers long and covered with black metal spikes and huge flails, almost filled the entire planet's sky. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At the same time, whether it was human ships or alien ships docked at the starport, they were completely destroyed by black electromagnetic storms that quickly extended like lightning branches. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Countless metal fragments of ships fell densely towards the surface of Sable like meteor fire rain. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Terra above, Omnissiah above, the Rangdan warships. The Rangdan are here. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, the rogue trader, who had just poked his pale head out of the shop, suddenly let out a miserable howl filled with horror and despair. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. He just wanted to turn around and flee to the back of the shop, but you, reacting quickly, stepped forward and grabbed his slender neck. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You suddenly lifted the gray hood covering your bald head, revealing that slightly glowing bronze face. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You stared expressionlessly at the rogue trader with a distorted expression, and roared in a low voice with gritted teeth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Unfamiliar friend. For the sake of being fellow Terrans, your armory is requisitioned by me. Close black lens bracket. Thank you all for your support. The information on the Rangdan is scarce, so I can only use the existing information to freely develop it. In fact, I think the galaxy during the Great Crusade should be a universe similar to Star Wars. Of course, due to the nature of Warhammer itself, it is darker and more brutal. For example, humans or other weak alien races being sold as slaves at will, and there may even be some mixed blood races of humans and aliens. Even standing from the perspective of other alien races, I think this kind of universe is quite dynamic. If there is no chaos, this kind of stirrer. Chapter 342. Hail Hydra. Omegan. Today, we are all Alpha Legion. 4. Open black lens bracket. You don't know much about the Rangdan xenomorphs, or rather, the Rangdan Empire. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You only know that even the burgeoning human empire, now engaged in the Great Crusade, launched 3 Rangdan wars in succession. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The direct cost was the deaths of several legions, nearly hundreds of thousands of Astartes, and the disappearance of at least one Primarch and his entire legion. The indirect cost was the incineration of dozens of sectors and countless humans and other alien races, barely securing a Pyrrhic victory in this terrifying war. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even so, the war situation faced by the human empire against the Rangdan Empire once deteriorated to the point where the emperor was forced to open the Night Maze, which held the shard of the star god Void Dragon on Mars, in order to barely stabilize the overall progress of the Great Crusade. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even 10,000 years later, in the 41st millennium, sightings of Rangdan xenomorphs are still reported throughout the galaxy. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Now, you will face alone the terror attack of this super xenomorph empire that can go toe-to-toe with the human empire. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A faint and ominous premonition rises in your heart. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. That is, the sudden invasion of Saval by the Rangdan Empire is most likely aimed at you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You use a metal palm to grip the rogue trader's incredibly fragile neck, forcibly breaking into his underground armory. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. More than 100 sailors quickly obeyed your orders. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They abandoned guarding the cargo and followed you into the rogue trader's underground warehouse. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Everyone, find carapace armor or other defensive gear to replace what you have. Replace those lost weapons with any alien technology weapons you can use. Don't overlook ammo, grenades, and other supplies. Apart from essential food supplies, take as much ammo and supplies as you can carry. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You coldly scan the shelves around you, filled with a dazzling array of weapons and equipment. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You casually toss aside the trembling rogue trader, whose face is covered in tears and snot, and walk to the weapon racks. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You temporarily stow away the 2 Xeno short spears. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You tear off the hooded cloak covering your body and begin to hang weapons on the ceramite shell. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You pick up 2 ancient-looking Phobos pattern bolters and stick them in your waist, while also filling the storage space of your power pack with bolter magazines. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Turning your gaze, you look around and find 2 Eldar shuriken pistols from the weapon racks, which you strap to the back of your power pack. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, the rogue trader, who is slumped on the ground, frantically moves his thin, pale legs and crawls to your magnetic boots. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Lord. Lord. Take any weapons and equipment here that you and your men want. But when you choose to break out, can you please take me with you? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. I really don't want to become a low-level slave under the Rangdan xenomorphs. I've heard from other alien races that the experience is worse than death. He hugs your ceramite leg tightly, his face extremely distorted, pleading with you in a wailing voice. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You look down at him with a blank expression. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You lean down slightly, and the huge metal palm once again lifts the sobbing rogue trader into the air. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Where is your escape route? I don't believe you would build your underground warehouse into a tomb with no way out. You ask the rogue trader in a low voice. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Respected Lord, it's over there, behind the wall. There are still several large vehicles that have just been repaired. Originally, I intended to use them for trading with others. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The rogue trader, his pale skin flushed with excitement, tremblingly points to a metal wall in the underground warehouse. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Without waiting for you to issue an order, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. One of your trusted sailors, Big Head, immediately understands and runs over there. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. He sticks out his large head, fumbles around in front of the metal wall for a while, and then forcefully turns some kind of switch. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Accompanied by a grating sound of mechanical valves turning, the entire metal wall slowly moves to the side. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Beneath the pale lights that gradually illuminate, two battered transport vehicles with bullet holes and melting marks all over their armor, the Horus armored personnel carriers, are revealed within everyone's sight. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At the same time, several broken vehicles from alien races are also piled up randomly on the ground nearby. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You can't help but take a deep breath, revealing an ugly smile. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Lads, find someone who knows how to see if they can start the engines. If they can be barely driven, start moving the ammo and supplies up there. You immediately issue an order with a grin to the sailors who are changing weapons and equipment. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You throw down the terrified rogue trader in your hand, letting him join the ranks of moving supplies. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You turn around and continue to hang any ammo and supplies you can find on your body. Fragment grenades are wrapped around your ceramite shell one by one. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Perhaps your intention to take the rogue trader with you to escape has won his trust. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You receive guidance from the rogue trader and find a halo launcher stained with dried blood in an extremely hidden corner of the warehouse. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Through the rogue trader's miracle, you successfully install the halo launcher on top of the power pack. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Before you can rejoice that your chances of a successful escape have greatly increased. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, everyone clearly senses a series of violent tremors and faint, terrifying wails from above the ground. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This undoubtedly proves that the Rangdan Empire's ground vanguard has successfully landed. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. It also represents the insignificant resistance of the tech oligarchs of this barbaric tech planet being successfully dismantled, completely declaring failure. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You take a deep breath. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You quickly order everyone around you to abandon moving more ammo and supplies, and forcibly squeeze into the two Horus armored personnel carriers that can be started. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Some sailors who really can't fit inside should try to sit on top of the armored personnel carriers as much as possible. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The risk of being strafed by enemy fire is much faster than running on 2 feet. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Just as you are about to drive the power armor into the depths of the underground passage to scout the way. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. From the pile of alien vehicles nearby, you accidentally discover an Eldar jet bike that has been repaired by the rogue trader. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Without hesitation, you drag out this alien vehicle, drive the power armor and straddle it. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You hold the jet bike's control stick in one hand, activate the anti-gravity device on it, and pick up a bolter filled with ammunition in the other hand. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Accompanied by the almost deafening engine roar of the 2 Horus armored personnel carriers. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You shout loudly to the crowd without looking back. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Come on, lads. Let's gamble our lives with the Rangdan xenomorphs. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. For the Emperor. Close black lens bracket. Thank you for your support. Thank you to sacrifice exist wrong for the 3,000-point reward. Chapter 343 Hydra Lives Omegan. Today, we are all Alpha Legionnaires. 5. Open black lens bracket. You drove the Eldar jet bike, rushing out of the hidden exit of the underground warehouse like a speeding metal lightning bolt. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The concrete camouflage wall, smashed to pieces by you, constantly struck your ceramite armor mixed with fine yellow sand in the air, making crisp collision sounds. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At the same time, 2 Horus armored personnel carriers with roaring engines followed behind you, rushing out of the underground passage. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You deftly controlled the Eldar jet bike, hovering in midair. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You immediately looked towards the direction of the noisy sound. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Just a few kilometers away, deep in the trade market, countless human merchant rogue traders and alien races were frantically fleeing between buildings. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, there seemed to be no more conflicts or gaps between any races. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Their only goal was to jointly resist the terrifying attacks of the Rakagal aliens, and try to win a chance to escape successfully for their side. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Green-skinned orcs, yelling and waving their choppas and shootas, stood in front of the humans and other alien races. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They fearlessly launched extremely fierce counterattacks against the alien slave army of different races forcibly controlled by the Rakagal. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Behind the orc boys were human rogue traders with ugly and even distorted expressions. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They led their bodyguards and guards, fighting and retreating, trying to fill the gaps in the orc boys' battle line with fire support from their lost weapons. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In the human ranks, a group of Strixus, short in stature and wearing black cloaks, made shrill screams of horror while raising their not-so-small etheric weapons, launching energy bombardment towards the Rakagal slaves. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. As for those alien races whose names you couldn't even call, they either relied on their innate abilities to stealthily escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Or they relied on their strong physical qualities to forcibly break out a hasty escape route for the entire Allied forces' retreat. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You subconsciously turned your gaze and looked towards the burning starport where countless ships were constantly falling. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, those metal fragments scattered like celestial maidens scattering flowers actually possessed a different kind of destructive beauty. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You couldn't help but widen your eyes. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You clearly saw the tragic scene of your Conqueror-class armed freighter, which had not yet been named, being completely shattered by Rakagal warships. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You clenched your teeth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You had no time to mourn the death of the witty navigator Old Man and the confidant sailor, Old Bones, and others. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Big head. Lead the armored personnel carrier away from here as soon as possible. See if you can escape this planet before the Rakagal aliens launch attacks on other places. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You narrowed your eyes and took a deep breath of air full of earthy smell. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You shouted loudly at the Oris armored personnel carrier without looking back. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Oh no, Captain. What are you planning to do? Let's run together, there's still time. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The terrified shout from your confidant sailor Big Head clearly reached your ears. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You turned the Eldar jet bike expressionlessly. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You also gripped the firestorm bolter in your palm. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Astartes of humanity are not cowards. The Emperor's sons will not flee in panic. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Big Head. I order you to leave immediately. This is my war. There's no escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You shouted loudly in a low voice. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The next second, you unhesitatingly drove the Eldar jet bike hovering in midair and rushed towards the front where fierce fighting was taking place. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The distance of several kilometers was reached in an instant at the speed of the Eldar jet bike. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, under the doubtful and horrified gazes of those human rogue traders and other alien races, and in the midst of the orc boys' roaring battle cries. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You suddenly raised the firestorm bolter in your palm and pulled the trigger with unparalleled precision towards the Rakagal alien slaves below. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In an instant, many unknown alien slaves were torn into flesh and blood by the explosive fire of the bolter. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A stream of stinky, warm blood splashed onto the bodies of the scarred orc boys. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Lil gets big shoota? An orc boy with only one eye left muttered while baring his teeth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The choppa in his palm was waved forcefully, easily chopping off the flat heads of the alien slaves. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, you re-hovered the Eldar jet bike above the orc boys' formation. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You tore off a string of fragmentation grenades from your ceramite armor and threw them casually towards the orc boys below. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Big bombs. You widened your eyes and shouted to the orc boys in a low voice. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Liars or grots. These are clearly small bombs. An orc boy caught a string of fragmentation grenades, skillfully removed the ring, and threw them towards the rear of the alien slaves. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Other orc boys who received the fragmentation grenades also immediately activated them and launched a continuous manual bombardment towards the alien slaves in front. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In an instant, the densely packed Rakagal alien slaves were completely submerged by countless explosions, temporarily squeezing out a moment of respite for the entire Allied forces' escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, at this moment, behind the Rakagal alien slaves formation. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A Rakagal alien, brain eater, with a height of about 2.8 or 9 meters, wearing a set of heavy armor covered in black spikes, and a head resembling an octopus, revealed its terrifying figure. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. It quickly raised a tentacle hand wrapped in spiked armor and waved it gently. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. With the continuous dissipation of invisible psychic energy, those alien slaves who had just been killed by the impact fragments of the explosions or weapon ammunition gradually crawled up from the bloody sand, resurrected from the dead. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You immediately raised the bolter in your palm and launched a continuous and fierce bombardment towards the true Rakagal alien. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At the same time, the orc boys also bared their teeth and used their shooters to launch covering fire at the opponent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The next second, a light green energy barrier suddenly appeared in front of the Rakagal alien's body, forcibly blocking any attacks from you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You turned your head and scanned the retreat distance of the allied force, and glanced at the orc boys who were beginning to suffer casualties. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You casually threw away the depleted bolter, drew two Xenos short spears from behind your waist, and quickly combined them into a double-headed spear. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You suddenly raised the double-headed spear in your palm and pointed it at the Rakagal alien whose gaze seemed to be fixed on you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Orcs. Decapitation tactics. You leaned slightly and shouted loudly at the orc boys below. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Lil, gets big shoota. Remember to chop, eads. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, scarred orc boys gripped the crude weapons in their palms. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They fearlessly grinned, and suddenly let out a battle cry that resounded throughout the surroundings. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. WAAAGH. Close black lens bracket. Thank you all for your support. I described the specific image of the Rakagal alien according to the appearance of the Mind Flayer. Because there is indeed no more information. The worm aliens and the sloth with specific descriptions are more like the Rakagal aliens behind-the-scenes strategists. If I have the opportunity to write about the great chaos of various races in the future, I will write about the story of the orcs and Astartes joining forces, which feels very interesting. Chapter 344 Hydra Lives Omega. Today, we are all Alpha Legion, 6. Open black lens bracket. Week 4. You successfully united a group of fearless orc boys to kill a Rangdan xenomorph, Brain-Eater. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, after you and the chattering orc boys paid the price of nearly half of the entire decapitation team's casualties, and defeated the opponent through close combat. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. More than a dozen Rangdan xenomorph, Brain-Eaters, wearing black spiked armor once again revealed their terrifying, towering figures. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They manipulated more alien slaves to gradually surround you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Only then did you realize. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This Rangdan xenomorph, Brain-Eater, which can forcibly control other aliens by using neural collars in conjunction with psychic powers, and even temporarily revive dead creatures, is just an ordinary warrior in the Rangdan Empire. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You had no choice but to manipulate the Eldar jet bike to refloat, and tried your best to persuade the eager orc boys to control their desire for battle. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You successfully made the orc boys obey your command and covered the joint team's rapid retreat. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, accompanied by the appearance of more Rangdan xenomorphs. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Countless human rogue traders and other alien races who did not have time to escape were caught on the spot. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They were forcibly fitted with neural collars, completely becoming members of the Rangdan slaves. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Immediately afterwards, these Rangdan slaves, who had lost their minds, launched a continuous pursuit in the direction of the joint team's escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Week 5. The originally temporarily united escape team was gradually dispersed due to the Rangdan xenomorph, Brain Eaters, division tactics and the contradictions between many aliens, completely becoming a disorganized mob fighting on their own. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Only a small number of orc boys and a dozen exhausted humans remained by your side. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even if you racked your brains to use the harsh surface environment, and even detonated the Eldar jet bike at the cost of launching continuous ambushes and attacks against the enemy's pursuers. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, the technological gap in weapons and equipment and the disadvantages on the human side could not be compensated by one person's battle. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, you also keenly noticed some strange clues. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. When those Rangdan xenomorph, Brain Eaters, faced you alone, they would only try to use alien slaves and psychic powers to surround and try to control your mind. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. But when facing other orc boys or even humans, the Rangdan xenomorphs did not even use control methods, and directly used a special energy weapon with great power to completely smash the opponent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. As time went by, the escape team around you gradually disappeared. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. After the last severely injured orc boy chose to buy you more time to escape, the entire escape team was left with you alone. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath of the turbid air and clenched the double-headed spear in your palm. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You began to use the Rangdan xenomorph's idea of trying to capture you alive to launch a final desperate counterattack against the enemy. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In one difficult battle after another, you even gradually mastered this powerful body belonging to a certain Primarch. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You only need a small amount of food and fresh water to maintain a whole day of combat consumption. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You have mastered the use of the alien weapon, the double-headed spear, and the Eldar weapon, the shuriken pistol, has also become one of your few remaining weapons. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In the next period of time, the number of Rangdan xenomorph, Brain Eaters, successfully killed by you is slowly increasing. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. From the initial 10 minutes to completely kill a Rangdan xenomorph, it gradually transitioned to breaking the opponent's single-person energy shield in a few tens of seconds and piercing through the enemy's octopus head. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, the technological equipment and supplies of the Rangdan Empire cannot be used by you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. If you want to support the war with war, but you cannot get any supplies, you can only try to reduce the number of fierce battles in order to reduce physical energy and ammunition consumption. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, as the number of Rangdan xenomorph, Brain Eater, casualties increased, the enemy seemed to have changed its pursuit strategy. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Small landing craft with black spikes all over their metal shells began to fly over your head, greatly increasing the difficulty for you to obtain the necessary survival resources. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Soon after, when you tried to dig up some local beetles from the sand that could be used to satisfy your hunger. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You accidentally fell into an ambush trap set in advance by 3 Rangdan xenomorph, Brain Eaters. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Your heavy shoulder armor and the front of your chest armor were heavily hit by black metal flails waved up, and the ceramite armor on it only resisted for a very short time before it began to quickly shatter and collapse. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You tried to counterattack with the shuriken pistol in your palm, but a special energy bombardment that was deliberately reduced in power directly hit the entire body. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The iron halo protection on your power armor only lasted for a moment before it shattered and completely entered the recovery state. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A large amount of scarlet blood suddenly spurted out from between your mouth and nose, and the heavy body-wearing power armor also fell heavily backwards. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Just when you thought you might be doomed this time. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Your entire consciousness suddenly fell into an extremely special state of division. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The double-headed spear tightly held in your palm was quickly divided into two short spears by hands raised without authorization. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Your powerful body, which had just suffered serious injuries, gradually activated its internal regeneration ability, and then leapt up effortlessly from the sand. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Little brother, there is no such thing as failure in Omega's life. Because failure means death. A ferocious and twisted smile suddenly appeared on the corner of your mouth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even a brighter and hotter gaze burst out from the depths of one of your eyes. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. An alien short spear was thrown out by your strong arm. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. After the extremely sharp spearhead penetrated the spiked armor of a Rangdan xenomorph, Brain Eater, it was attracted out of thin air by the interface of another alien short spear and returned to your palm. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In the next second, the alien weapon, which was reassembled into a double-headed spear by you, drew a more ingenious offensive route in your palm, and forcibly pierced deep into the octopus head of a Rangdan xenomorph. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Immediately afterwards, you reactivated this powerful body-wearing power armor, and took continuous and terrifying stabs at the last Rangdan xenomorph that pounced on you with heavy magnetic boots. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, the double-headed spear was almost shaken into layers of phantoms by your thick arm, and the energy shield that had just emerged from the Rangdan xenomorph was completely penetrated by the indestructible sharp spearhead. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. After you casually stabbed and exploded the octopus head of the Rangdan xenomorph. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You subconsciously rolled up the double-headed spear in your palm and quickly turned your eyes to scan the surrounding alien corpses. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Omega, are you still there? You blinked your eye that belonged to you slightly, took a deep breath and asked in a low voice. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. I have always been here, strange Primarch brother. In fact, after inadvertently peeking into part of your memory, I have always been waiting for the opportunity to meet you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, your other brighter and hotter eye couldn't help but blink. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A deep voice with a clearly different tone also slowly drifted out from the depths of your throat. Close black lens bracket. Thank you for your support. Open black lens bracket. Week 6. While chewing on the bitter, sap-filled local beetles, you engaged in an in-depth conversation with the Gene Seed Primarch, Omegan, who had just awakened within you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You first expressed your loyalty to the Emperor and the Imperium of Man. Then, you introduced him to the concept of the warp. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Using certain euphemisms that wouldn't attract the attention of the four gods, you began to educate Omegan about the existence of the Chaos Forces. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Chaos Demons. So, those terrifying rumors I heard in the past were actually true. Omegan's mouth twitched slightly, and an eye, burning with intense light, couldn't help but blink. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Brother, according to your memories, is Horus's betrayal unavoidable? Omegan pondered for a moment, then asked you in a low voice. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You picked up another local beetle and threw it into your mouth, chewing vigorously. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Unless the Emperor blesses me one day, allowing me to reach Horus before he succumbs to chaos corruption, and I can successfully break through the traps those things have meticulously laid. But, personally, I believe that the many hidden dangers the Emperor left behind to buy time for humanity's future will inevitably erupt sooner or later. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even without the Horus heresy, other Primarchs and Astartes would betray the Emperor and humanity again due to various factors, possibly even igniting a galactic cataclysm far more severe than the predetermined betrayal. Because as long as the warp exists, those four entities will endure. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Omegan seemed to fall silent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Having glimpsed parts of your memories, he didn't express agreement with your thoughts, but he also didn't express opposition. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Just then, Omegan suddenly shifted his gaze, staring into the dark night not far away. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You slowly tightened your grip on the double-headed spear in your hand and quickly climbed out of the sandy pit where you were hiding for warmth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Something's coming, brother. Now is not the time for you and me to continue talking. Our top priority now is to survive. Omegan couldn't help but crack a sinister smile on one side of his mouth as he spoke to you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You remain silent, not responding to his words. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You widened your eyes with utmost vigilance, observing everything that was happening in front of you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In an instant, a Randan alien, clearly larger in size and, judging by the shape of its spiked armor and the weapons it carried, more suited for close combat, burst out of the thick darkness and pounced on you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, the enemy's heavy footsteps stirred up countless grains of sand, constantly striking the black armor covered in terrifying spikes. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You backhanded the last remaining star dart gun from behind your power pack and quickly pulled the trigger at the enemy in front. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Countless narrow, crystal clear star darts crashed against the Randan alien's pale green shield, emitting a series of extremely crisp shattering sounds. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You casually tossed aside the star dart gun and, with incredible speed, activated your power armor, charging head-on towards the enemy. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The sharp point of the double-headed spear was firmly secured under your thick armpit. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Then, using the powerful impact speed between the two of you, you forcibly pierced through the Randan alien's pale green shield, deeply embedding it into the interior of its spiked armor. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The Randan alien's reaction was also very swift. The flail and mace immediately came crashing down on you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, you didn't give the enemy a chance to launch another attack. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The moment the double-headed spear pierced into the opponent's body, the rear half of the spear was quickly disassembled into a short spear. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Your other hand tightly gripped the temporarily released short spear, without hesitation, using the sharp spearhead to forcibly pierce deep into the Randan alien's head. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The Randan alien's counterattack came to an abrupt halt. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath, casually pulled out the short spear stained with green blood, letting the Randan alien's large corpse fall heavily to the ground. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, before Omegan, who had been watching all along, Could congratulate you on your improved combat skills. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The next second, the corpse of the Randon alien that had just died and fallen to the ground actually bloomed with streaks of extremely conspicuous pale green fluorescence towards the dark night sky. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At the same time, you heard the engine hum of Randon landing craft rapidly cutting through the air. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Damn it. This is another trap deliberately set by the Randon aliens. You gritted your teeth and growled. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Run in that direction. According to the composition of the surrounding geographical environment, the terrain there is more complex. Perhaps you can get rid of the enemy's pursuit. Omegan quickly shifted your gaze. He said to you in a calm tone. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You didn't even have time to pick up the discarded star dart gun. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You immediately turned around, driving the power armor, and ran towards the more complex terrain of the Gobi Desert. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Week 7. You seem to have luckily evaded the Randon aliens' relentless pursuit. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. But after entering the complex terrain of the Gobi Desert, the food supplies you could obtain from it gradually became pitifully scarce. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even those local beetles, which were commonly seen everywhere in the desert, seemed to have become rare delicacies. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You needed to expend more physical strength to barely find a few. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Omegan took this opportunity to teach you how to extract fresh water from the harsh environment in front of you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You squatted on the ground digging for local beetles, listening to Omegan slowly say, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. I figured out this wilderness survival technique myself. I remember the first time I opened my eyes and had memories, there was only a crumbling incubation pod next to me. The living environment there might have been a little better than it is now, but now that I think about it, it wasn't much better. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Most importantly, it was an uninhabited, desolate planet. My longest record was 3 years without saying a single word. I vaguely remember that the thing that accompanied me the longest was an alien metal skeleton. The pale spear you are using now was picked up near that skeleton. Perhaps the other party also encountered a tragic battle that no one remembers. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Wait. Brother. Stop digging for beetles. What the hell is that? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, the exclamation from Omegan made you raise your vigilance. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You immediately stood up with the pale spear in hand, ready to defend, but in an instant, your eyes widened, and you gasped. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A sloth. Close black lens bracket. Thank you all for your support. I'll write on the writer's assistant website from now on. Not only did the word processing software crash, but the manuscript couldn't be recovered, which was fatal. At this moment, on the Gobi Desert, just tens of meters away from you, a large group of palm-sized, hideous worms rapidly burrowed out of the cracked earth, and in the blink of an eye, coalesced into a humanoid monster about 3 meters tall. Immediately following this, a black hooded robe with a tattered hem rapidly extended from within the countless hideous worms, completely concealing the terrifying form beneath. Ah, Primarch of the Human Empire, we have finally found you. The alien race known as the Sloth uttered a chaotic, resonating voice in your direction. You seemed to have no intention of responding. You quickly activated your power armor, wanting to turn and flee, to get as far away from this place as possible. However, at that moment, streams of special energy from all directions continuously bombarded the area around your magnetic boots, sending countless dust and gravel flying. Simultaneously, as many as 5 towering sloths slowly converged on your position from other directions. I said, we found you. But to have the Arnden Empire send us to capture you, as a weak human, you should feel honored, the sloth who appeared first said in a muffled voice. the constantly resonating sound as grating as countless carapaces rubbing together. Omegan, if the situation becomes critical, I may not be able to protect your body. Just then, you suddenly said in a low voice to Omegan, who was diligently rotating his gaze, surveying the surrounding environment. I understand, brother. The worst outcome is simply to die in battle. Although I don't fully understand the existence of a gene seed primarch, I know their importance to the human empire. Therefore, we, or rather, I, absolutely cannot fall into the hands of the Arndan Empire. As soon as the words fell, a blindingly bright, scorching light seemed to erupt from the eye where Omegan resided. He stared intently at the sloth who was slowly approaching, and suddenly, a roar that echoed all around burst forth from deep within your throat. For the Emperor, you and Omegan shouted in unison. You gripped the pale spear tightly in your palms. Your towering power-armored forms crouched slightly, as if about to launch a desperate charge at the enemy in the next second. Just as this fierce battle was about to erupt, accompanying a series of sharp, buzzing air vibrations and the dazzling flashes of teleportation, 5 3-meter-tall Lernaean ironclad Terminators and a regular Astartes marine-clad in sea-blue power armor landed heavily between you and the sloth. This is, you and Omegan widened your eyes subconsciously, muttering to yourselves. At the same time, the 5 Lernaean Terminators, who had quickly formed a defensive formation, raised their metal hands, and the terrifying firepower of their storm bolters rapidly poured into the writhing worm-like bodies of the 6 converging sloth. Even though the explosive bursts of the bolter rounds could not temporarily penetrate the single-person shields that had suddenly appeared on the sloth, they forcibly halted their advance. At this moment, the Astartes marine clad in sea blue power armor quickly grabbed a spare bolter from the back of his jump pack and threw it in your direction. You and Omegan unhesitatingly raised your hands to catch the bolter, and then immediately pulled the trigger on the nearest sloth. Arndan's personal shields require high-powered ranged weapons or melee attacks to completely break. But be careful of those sloth, because ordinary melee attacks are difficult to kill them. You shouted loudly to the Astartes standing around without turning your head. Came too hastily, hardly brought anything. Will toxin-filled fragmentation grenades work? The Astartes marine clad in sea blue power armor immediately turned his metal helmet and shouted in your direction. But the bolter he held tightly in his palm did not stop for a moment, continuing to spew terrifying bolter rounds and flames. You seemed to feel that the other party's words and actions were somewhat familiar, and even his way of speaking and habits were more like Omegan. Then let's try it. You shook your head vigorously and took a deep breath. You gripped the pale spear tightly in your palm, your magnetic boots stomping hard on the ground. You took the lead in launching a swift charge towards a sloth in front of you. The extremely sharp spearhead almost instantly penetrated the opponent's shield, but did not cause much damage to the sloth's writhing worm body. At this moment, the Lernaean Terminator quickly activated its extremely heavy power armor and stepped forward. While firing its storm bolter at the sloth, stopping the enemy's next move, it forcibly inserted its metal hand, tightly gripping 2 toxin fragmentation grenades, into the interior of the constantly writhing worm body. You quickly retracted the pale spear. You desperately moved your magnetic boots, dodging behind the towering back of the Terminator's power armor. The next moment, accompanied by the Lernaean Terminator's rapid withdrawal of its metal hand, and the rapid retreat of its towering figure, the sloth, who had just intended to use a special energy weapon, was instantly blasted into a large number of fragmented, writhing worms by the explosive flash. The green mist, spreading like maggots clinging to a bone, immediately caused those hideous worms that wanted to reassemble to rapidly decay, gradually losing their vitality. The Astartes marine clad in sea blue power armor, after discovering that this plan was feasible, immediately waved his metal hand at the others. The remaining Lernaean Terminators quickly drew their melee weapons and unhesitatingly pounced on the sloth. However, even if you had found a clever way to quickly eliminate the sloth aliens, the special energy bombardment from the sloth still cost a Lernaean Terminator its life. You had to throw the pale spear back and forth, the sharp spearhead breaking the sloth's shields one after another, also creating opportunities for others to continue attacking. A few minutes later, All 6 sloth aliens were completely annihilated. You slowly exhaled a breath of air. You and Omegan's gazes gradually shifted to the Astartes Marine who was carrying the bolter, bending slightly to check on the fallen Lernaean Terminator. Judging from the paint scheme and armor style, they are Astartes from the Ghost Legion. Your other brother has arrived, you said softly to Omegan, lowering your voice as much as possible. Rest assured, little brother, there are some things that I, Omegan, would rather die than reveal a single word of. Omegan's almost mosquito-like voice echoed in the depths of your throat, fleeting in an instant. You nodded slightly, lowering the bolter and the pale spear in your hands. You took a deep breath and adjusted your mindset. You activated your power armor and strode forward, heading towards the Astartes warrior in sea blue power armor. At this moment, as you slowly approached, the remaining 4 Lernaean Terminators faced your direction, kneeling on one knee, helmets lowered, and hands performing the Aquila salute. At the same time, as if having completed a brief mourning for the fallen of the Honor Guard, the Astartes warrior slowly stood up. He faced you and reached up to remove his metal helmet. The other party revealed a bronze face almost identical to yours, or rather, Omegan's, even the bald head was nearly identical. It was the Alpha Legion's sole soul, the Serpent Lord, the first and perhaps the final Primarch, Alpharius. Years ago, I knew that in this cold, cruel galaxy, there was a brother who shared my life and death. A true blood brother. A brilliant smile instantly appeared on Alpharius's bronze face. He quickly walked up to you, opening his thick arms to give you a long-awaited embrace. I am Alpharius, brother. Have you heard of the Astartes? Alpharius asked softly in your ear. You deliberately returned control of the tall body to Omegan. However, Omegan merely gave his fraternal brother Alpharius a brief embrace before returning control of the body to you. You were slightly stunned, then shook your head slightly, letting out a sigh and replying softly. You can call me Omegan. As for the names of the Astartes and the Emperor, the current galaxy probably knows them all. What's wrong, brother? Are you unhappy to see your fraternal brother? It doesn't matter. We can take our time to get to know each other in the future. There's no rush. Alpharius released his embrace with a smile, patting your thick shoulder armor and asking. The Lernaean Terminators kneeling to the side also slowly stood up, facing you. Although you couldn't see their faces at all because of the metal helmets, you could vaguely sense their deep respect and joy from their helmet lenses. To be honest, I thought I was going to die here just now, bro. Brothers, how did you find me? You took a deep breath, subtly changing the subject from before. Perhaps it was the Emperor himself missing you, or perhaps it was the blessings of fate that Masong always talked about. Alpharius didn't mind your stumbling over the change in address. He pointed to the other Lernaean Terminators to lift the body of the fallen Terminator, while turning his head to gaze at you. Our Legion's flagship, the Alpha, received a group of refugees trying to escape the Arnden invasion, and some of them inadvertently mentioned that someone had seen me in the trade market on this planet. But I'm sure I've never been to this planet called Savol, and later a team of sailors who lost their cargo ship helped me confirm that this was indeed the case. If it weren't to verify the truth of the news, I wouldn't have come in such a hurry, and immediately teleported down with only a squad of Terminators. Sailors? Is there a person with a large head among them? They actually survived? And in a way, they indirectly saved me. You paused slightly, blinking your eyes as you spoke. Are they your people? They seem loyal enough. If they pass the screening in the future, they can be given a few experimental gene enhancement surgeries. If they barely survive, they can become your Astartes, although they are much weaker than the Astartes from regular channels, but they are still Astartes. At this moment, Alpharius suddenly looked up at the distant skyline, saying absent-mindedly to you. You didn't respond to the other party's words. You also turned your head to look at the position of the skyline. At this moment, small and medium-sized landing craft from the Arnden Empire and the seemingly dusty alien slave army on the ground gradually presented an extremely terrifying figure, the dense attacking force almost stretching endlessly. Where is the Legion's flagship? I want to call for orbital bombardment. You widened your eyes instantly, asking Alpharius loudly without turning your head. Brother, there is a very important thing you need to understand. Our human technology is completely crushed by these damn Arnden aliens. Our fleet is almost a series of living targets against the Arndan Empire's battleships. The muscles on Alpharis's bronze face twitched non-stop. He quickly waved his palm at the Lernaean Terminators standing nearby, then turned his head to say to you. One of the Legion's Gloriana-class flagships is leading the entire fleet to drag the Arndan aliens' main invasion fleet, currently suffering heavy losses. But rest assured, the Thunderhawk transport ship responsible for picking us up has already departed. As long as we continue to persevere for a while, it will be fine. Upon hearing the other party's words, not only you, but even Omegan, who had just calmed down, couldn't help but reopen one eye and glare at his brother. Even with 2 Primarchs plus 4 Lernaean Terminators, facing tens of thousands of alien slaves and countless Arndan aliens, the final outcome would really not be good. Perhaps they would be completely swallowed by countless aliens with one encounter. You quickly took a deep breath, gripping the pale spear in your palm tightly. Is this number of aliens something that can be persisted through? No fire support. No backup escape plan. Are you here to accompany me to die? You couldn't help but sneer. Brother, those words are too hurtful. Rest assured, Alpharius has his own decisions. Alpharis's bronze face gradually became serious. He stared at you intently and said in a deep voice. However, intelligence from one of the Lernaean Terminators made the smile reappear on Alpharis's bronze face. Now we have found a way to escape this planet. I told you Alpharius has a way, right? Just a few dozen kilometers away from here, there is a local power plant, inside which there is a Thunderhawk shuttle that has not yet been destroyed. If there are no unexpected circumstances, that is enough for us to completely get away from this place of trouble and board our flagship. Week 8, all of you are engaged in a strategic retreat. Open black lens bracket. Of course, this is just what Alpharius calls it in name only. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In reality, all of you know this is a frantic escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, while you can temporarily leave the Randan alien slave army behind thanks to your mobility, you can't completely evade their landing craft. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even if you and Alpharius rack your brains to change your route, suicidal Randan aliens will still descend from the sky, blocking your path. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You have no choice but to roar and face them in battle. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. During this time, those honor guards whose names you don't even know. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The 4 Lerna Terminators also perfectly fulfilled their duties. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Once everyone had exhausted their bolter ammunition, leaving only the toxin shredder grenades meant for the sloth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. They began to rely on their powerful Terminator armor and melee weapons to engage in incredibly bloody and brutal slaughter with the Randan aliens. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. 9-headed tyrant. The battle roar from the Lerna Terminators nearly shook the heavens. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. In the end, each Lerna Terminator sacrificed their brave loyalty and life for your and Alpharis's escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, you, Omegan, and Alpharius, open black lens bracket, have gradually developed a near telepathic and perfect understanding due to fighting side by side for so long. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. When you encountered the Randan aliens' encirclement and interception again, this fighting style completely displayed its great effect. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, you, with a stern expression, casually disassembled the pale spear in your palm, which had just pierced a Randan alien, into 2 short spears. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. A thick arm controlled by Omegan quickly took one. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. After swiftly slashing through the air, it forcefully pierced the light green shield of another Randan alien. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Omegan didn't choose to continue attacking. He controlled your feet to retreat backward, avoiding the Randan alien's fierce counterattack. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At the same time, The short spear in Omegan's palm was forcefully thrown towards Alphereus, who had reached the enemy's side. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Alphereus, his bronze face twitching, raised his arm and caught it, immediately thrusting it into the Randon alien's octopus-like head, splashing out streams of oily black blood. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. One of your fingers quickly stroked a row of raised and recessed texture on the other short spear. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The short spear, still stuck deep in the enemy's head, was instantly attracted back by an invisible force, reassembling into the pale spear in your palm. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You, Omegan, and Alphereus relied on this flexible and adaptable tactic and fighting style to successfully carve out a bloody path through the mountains of Randon alien corpses. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, just as you two arrived at the entrance of the power plant, and only managed to figure out the location of the Aquila shuttle. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The terrifying revenge from the Randon aliens immediately struck. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. 22 fully armed sloth, carrying terrifyingly powerful special energy weapons, completely blocked the open-air road leading from the power plant entrance to the landing platform. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. As long as they continued to delay, once the Randon alien slave army arrived here. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even if you and Alphereus temporarily grew pure white wings, you would definitely be unable to escape. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. And you also keenly judged from the sloth's special energy bombardments, which showed no sign of weakening. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The Randon Empire no longer held any hope of capturing the Primarch alive. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Perhaps the commander on the other side believed that since a living Primarch wasn't possible, then even a corpse would be barely acceptable. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You and Omegan, along with Alphereus, could only choose to give it your all and take a gamble. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You began to use the terrain around the power plant, as well as the few remaining toxin shredder grenades in your hands, to engage in an incredibly difficult struggle with the sloth. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. After several successful ambushes, Alphereus was hit head-on by a sloth's special energy weapon. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. If it hadn't been for the Primarch's powerful regenerative abilities successfully playing a life-saving role, as well as the protection of his power armor, he might have died on the spot. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Thanks to Omegan's hints and vigilance, you temporarily didn't suffer any overly serious injuries. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, the battle-worn version of power armor that you were wearing, which hadn't been repaired much, was perhaps about to reach the end of its journey. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Even the usually durable power pack would occasionally emit extremely harsh and low buzzing sounds, as if it would completely break down at any moment. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. During a brief lull in the fighting, you and Alphereus, whose face had turned pale, temporarily met up. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. At this moment, you two only had 3 toxin shredder grenades left in your hands. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. And the number of sloths still alive was 9. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Moreover, with the continuous death of large numbers of sloth, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This extremely mysterious Randon Empire alien race also began to reveal some of its mysterious veil to you. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Under the extremely vigilant gazes of you and Alphereus, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The 9 sloth wearing black hooded robes actually quickly merged through a mysterious ritual, rapidly merging into an even larger and terrifying worm monster. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. This fused terrifying worm monster's extremely large writhing body also emitted traces of psychic energy, clearly possessing some kind of powerful mind control ability. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You and Alpharius subconsciously exchanged a glance, and couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile between your lips. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. However, at this time, Omegan had a different view on this. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. He tried his best to imitate your way of speaking and said to himself, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The sloth chose to merge into a giant monster, which seems like a huge threat, but it also means that they can no longer stop us from going to the landing platform. As long as someone temporarily holds it back, the other person can directly go and activate the shuttle. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Brother, lend me the pale spear. I'll go hold back the worm monster. If I die in battle, you're the only Primarch of the Ghost Legion. You are Alpharius. Alpharius, his face pale, stared at you without hesitation and said, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You took a deep breath and shook your head slightly at the other party. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. To be honest, I don't know how to fly the shuttle. I haven't even learned how, so let me handle this simple combat mission. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You, or rather Omegan, showed Alpharius, whose face was pale, a gentle smile. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You casually picked up the pale spear and the remaining 3 toxin shredder grenades, and rushed out of your hiding place without hesitation. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. After today, we are all Alpharius. Close black lens bracket. In your palm, you tightly grip the pale spear, propelling the nearly collapsing power armor forward. Without hesitation, you charge directly towards the massive, terrifying worm monster. Alpharius, his face pale, follows closely behind. He grits his teeth and rushes out of his hiding place, running desperately towards the Aquila shuttle without looking back. You hurl a toxin fragmentation grenade at the massive, terrifying worm monster. The violently erupting explosion scatters some of the leech-like toxins onto the Slaanesh alien's terrifying body, immediately attracting its attention. Instantly, worm individuals melted and corroded by the toxin fall like heavy rain. However, countless wriggling worms refill the gaps just created on the massive body, and a giant arm formed from grotesque worms crashes down above your head. You immediately move your magnetic boots, dodging into a nearby space. Just then, extremely savage psychic power relentlessly invades the depths of your brain, causing you to suddenly spew strands of crimson blood from your mouth and nose. You and Omegan cry out in pain in unison. You suddenly realize that your consciousness has loosened slightly, and you can choose to bear the psychic attack from the Slaanesh alien alone. You make the decision without hesitation. Omegan, I can resist the psychic power myself. You buy time. You grit your teeth and roar softly at Omegan within your body. Hold on, little brother. Victory is at hand. Omegan immediately takes over the control of the powerful body. He handily divides the pale spear into 2, and a short spear instantly hurls towards the head of the terrifying worm monster. Even though the pale spear possesses the mysterious property of being indestructible, it cannot produce much decisive effect against a collection of alien monsters that seems to have an inexhaustible supply of individual entities. However, Omegan, relying on his years of combat awareness and powerful body, manages to barely hold his own against the terrifying worm monster. He repeatedly throws the pale spear around the terrifying worm monster, then quickly retrieves it, and chooses the right opportunity to throw the last 2 toxin fragmentation grenades into the terrifying worm monster's body. Along with a burst of explosive firelight with worms splattering everywhere, the boiling toxin quickly penetrates part of the terrifying worm monster's wriggling body, greatly reducing its offensive activity. However, at this moment, the suddenly increased psychic power gradually tears apart your conscious awareness. It also makes you unable to help but let out an uncontrollable roar of anger. Ah, little brother, Omegan raises his hand to catch the flying short spear, and he shouts loudly to you within his body with great concern. Just then, the roaring of the Aquila shuttle's engine and the intense buzzing of the autocannon cutting through the air resound in your and Omegan's ears. Goodbye, brother Omegan. In immense pain, you send your last greeting to Omegan. At this moment, the terrifying worm monster, on the verge of death after being repeatedly hit by autocannon shells, actually projects all of its psychic power into the depths of your mind. Your field of vision gradually blurs, leaving only the terrifying worm monster collapsing heavily and the Aquila shuttle passing overhead. Your entire consciousness is violently torn into countless slowly dissipating mental fragments by the final psychic power attack. Your consciousness gradually dissipates completely, with only a fragment of your spirit that has not yet dissipated accidentally remaining in the depths of Omegan's mind. You completely sink into thick darkness. You're dead, aren't you? This simulation is over, taking 56 days. The retainable options obtained in this simulation are as follows. 1. Pale Spear. Note: this is an alien technology spear that the Primarch Omegan found by accident during his childhood on a newly descended barbaric planet. Note: it is said that this is a powerful close combat weapon originating from the Necrons, but no Necron dynasty has ever been seen using similar standard spears. Therefore, the Necron origin theory of the Pale Spear is actually questionable. Note: perhaps the specific origin of this alien weapon belongs to another ancient alien race that has long died out. Ding dong, the old one's origin theory suspicion rises. Note: no matter where the Pale Spear comes from, it cannot withstand Alpha-Rius's envy and jealousy of the Primarch-level weapon. He even uses his brother's signature weapon all year round, just because he doesn't have one. Note: indestructible, indestructible, and indestructible. 2. Aquila Shuttle, Ordinary. Note: the Aquila Shuttle is the most commonly used small transport vehicle in the Imperium of Man, often used to transport various dignitaries and important figures, with an atmospheric range of up to 2,400 kilometers. Note: although the Aquila shuttle can be equipped with a heavy bolter, autocannon, or multi-laser, a small vehicle without a void shield is not a suitable combat unit. Note: what does it matter if there is no void shield? Real men, structural strength. An Inquisitor sitting in a shuttle said confidently. At this moment, he is on his way to the Dark Angels chapter for a secret investigation. 3. Pigment Control Orb. Alpha-Rius Omegan's in constant transformation, Primarch. Note: this hemispherical pigment control orb is an organ tissue comprehensively manufactured mainly from Omegan's organ cells and supplemented by Alpha-Rius's organ cells. Note: it seems to have been blessed and strengthened by the Emperor himself. Note: its existence will give your skin tissue the ability to detect and resist various extreme radiations, such as the skin becoming dark or becoming more pale. Even the Emperor himself does not know its special abilities. It is said that under certain extreme circumstances, your appearance may undergo some special changes. For example, can you turn into the appearance of Alpha-Rius Omegan? Note: there are 3 twin Primarchs. Is there anything strange about that? Omegan smiled slightly and said lightly to Alpha-Rius, who was confused. Note: Omegan gave you a vague warning. For the grand plan. A mix of good and bad, curved loyalty. Note: a psychic prophecy from the Emperor. Cataclysm is coming, let us do our best. The simulation time has exceeded 24 hours, and the simulator consumption has not been exempted. Next simulation cooldown time: 560 hours. Current available cooldown time: 8,043 hours. Do you want to consume cooldown time? At this moment, a wisp of biting cold wind gently caressed Luoshaw's face, also causing his whole person to subconsciously regain his senses. This simulation has ended, and it's time for him to make a choice and enhance himself. He narrowed his eyes, carefully reading the annotated information of the other reward options. However, when Luoshaw's gaze swept over the last annotation of the third enhancement reward, he couldn't help but frown, muttering to himself. I had already guessed about Alpha-Rius's twisted loyalty, but what does "cataclysm is imminent, we will do our best" mean? How did even the Emperor become a riddle speaker? Does it mean that the home world will encounter some great change? Or does it mean that I will encounter greater obstacles in future simulations? Your Majesty, please explain clearly. Luo Sha took a deep breath and subconsciously shook his head. In the end, he chose not to dwell on the matter. Luo Sha quickly adjusted his mindset and unhesitatingly chose the enhancement surgery reward. Hiss, instantly, accompanied by a series of rustling, subtle sounds. Deep within Luo Sha's tall body, hidden inside the power armor, a trace of gradually intensifying, severe pain vaguely arose. Soon after, this severe pain, like a maggot clinging to bone, rapidly spread to every inch of skin on his body. At this moment, the color of Luo Sha's skin began to switch back and forth between the extreme shades of charcoal black and snow white. Even the structure of the skin tissue itself seemed to undergo a terrifying change, constantly stirring up waves of bizarre ripples like a melting liquid. 10 minutes later, Luo Sha, who had his eyes tightly closed, slowly opened them, exhaling a mouthful of scorching air from his mouth and nose. He glanced left and right, casually picking up the metal helmet that had been thrown into a pile of fallen leaves. With the help of the faint starlight spilling down from above, and the weak light revealed by the screen inside the helmet, Luo Sha actually vaguely saw a familiar face with bronze-colored skin on the black ceramite outer shell of the metal helmet. Am I going to become Alphareus too? Luo Sha's eyes revealed a hint of shock as he subconsciously widened them. He stared intently at the blurry bronze-colored bald head on the helmet's outer shell and murmured in a low voice. Just then, accompanied by a terrifying change of writhing and undulating skin, the top of Luo Sha's smooth scalp actually grew back the original gray-white short hair, and even the color of his skin quickly returned to its original appearance. It's good that it can recover, scared me to death. However, can this disguise ability only transform into the appearance of Alphareus Omegan, or can I transform into the appearance of other people if I insist on changing and try hard? Luo Sha, raising his hand to touch his familiar chin, completely breathed a sigh of relief. He narrowed his eyes slightly, staring at the twinkling stars above his head and murmuring to himself. After thinking for a while, he didn't come up with any answers. So, Luo Sha simply activated the power armor and slowly stood up, striding towards the lower part of the hills. However, Luo Sha quickly discovered a passive special ability other than being able to transform into the Alphareus brothers. Just as he was driving the power armor, inadvertently walking past the chieftain who was responsible for guarding the sentry post. The other party, holding a bolter, seemed not to notice his passing in existence. He didn't even offer a basic greeting. This was an extremely rare situation in the stormtrooper squad. So, Luo Sha, with a slight frown, subconsciously asked. But then, the chieftain was first startled. Even the bolter in his palm instantly rose up. After he reacted, he said in a low voice to Luo Sha, who was close at hand. Sorry, leader. I didn't notice your existence just now, but I guarantee I wasn't distracted. Are you saying that you didn't even notice the sound of me approaching? Luo Sha asked the chieftain thoughtfully. No, now that I think about it, it's more like I subconsciously ignored the sound of your footsteps, thinking it was some kind of natural phenomenon that should be taken for granted. Leader, are you experimenting with some kind of ability? The chieftain pondered for a moment, asking Luo Sha with a puzzled tone. Well, maybe, after listening to the chieftain's answer. Luo Sha vaguely responded with a few words. He immediately activated the power armor and quickly walked towards the other people's guard positions. In order to test the specific effect of the special ability, Luo Sha deliberately increased the heavy footsteps of the power armor as it moved. As a result, apart from Krieg, who had not yet fallen asleep, noticing the unusual situation in advance, neither the Bane brothers nor Gao Qi were aware of Luo Sha's approach. Even Krieg told Luo Sha. He made an unconventional judgment by comprehensively considering his environmental location and basic common sense, rather than relying solely on the sensory system. In the end, Luo Sha made some judgments and analyses for himself. That is, in addition to obtaining the active disguise ability to change his appearance, he also gained a special passive ability that could tamper with other people's sensory systems or reduce his own sense of existence. And this seems to be one of the reasons why the Alphareus Legion's twin Primarchs are so mysterious. Time passed quickly, and just as Luo Sha was enthusiastically studying his new abilities, the Valkyrie, piloted by Iron Man David, slowly cut through the cold air and arrived above the rebel base before dawn. After the Valkyrie carefully found a suitable open space and quickly landed, a team of automated servo robots jumped out of the cabin first. Under the curious gaze of a group of rebels, they began to carry out a considerable amount of supplies to the outside. At this moment, Luo Sha, who had just learned how to forcibly turn off the passive ability, walked out from behind the crowd of onlookers as if out of thin air. He said to Zola, who was examining the supplies with a calm expression, "You go and sort out the supplies first, arrange everyone's food, clothing, and shelter, and then come to me. The people from the logistics team will help me deal with these trivial matters. I want to discuss the matter of rescuing Victor with you now. We have been waiting for this day to come for too long." Zola quickly withdrew her gaze. She stared at Luo Sha's face, shaking her head with a firm expression. Luo Sha turned his gaze and glanced at Iron Man David, who was slowly walking out of the cabin. He pondered for a moment and nodded, saying, "Then you go and notify everyone, find a cave to gather. I want to obtain all the information and data that your rebels know, especially about the Herring family. After all, knowing yourself and your enemy is the key to victory. I need to understand the specific location where Victor is being held, the number of enemies, and why you repeatedly failed to rescue him in the first place, understand?" Hearing Luo Sha's words, a touch of excitement suddenly appeared on Zola's face. She nodded very forcefully, saying, "Leader, we will definitely cooperate with all our strength. The territory of Latavlia is not large, and the total population is less than 1 million. It is bordered by Romania to the north, Serbia to the left, and Bulgaria shares part of the Black Sea coast to the south. Apart from the capital, Haran city, where the streets and buildings are relatively prosperous and the population is relatively dense. Only the area around the Haran River, which runs almost through the entire Latavlia, has seen the gradual construction of 7 or 8 satellite cities in recent decades. As for other places, they are basically rural towns where farmers gather, and even electricity is a luxury in many remote locations. After all, before the Haran family murdered the royal family to seize power, this place was just a small agricultural feudal country that had luckily escaped the Second World War and the Cold War era. At this moment, the winter temperature suddenly dropped, and the sky gradually darkened. Just around the satellite city called Haran No. 3, a tributary of the Haran River flows along the edge of the city. Whoosh! In an instant, a series of constantly churning muddy silt was suddenly stirred up from the depths of the riverbed, which was 5 meters deep, startling countless sleeping fish, shrimp, and crabs. In the next moment, black metal giants, more than 2 meters tall, slowly appeared with looming, terrifying figures. According to the hand-drawn map and various information provided by Zola and the others, plus David's data analysis, it was finally discovered that there is an old sewer pipe in this tributary of the Haran River that leads directly to Satellite City No. 3, and the spiritual leader of the rebels, Victor, is being held in the ancient fortress in the city center by the Haran family and the Leviathan people. Roche, wearing a metal helmet, said lightly to the stormtrooper squad beside him through the communication channel. The former rebels, due to the lack of technological equipment support, were unable to carry out similar rescue missions, so the rescue personnel who forcibly attacked suffered heavy casualties, but now, our power armor and training skills are enough to bridge any gap. I repeat again, our mission is to infiltrate the ancient castle and rescue Victor himself. Other than that, do not take any extra actions without authorization. Liberating this city is not our primary mission, understand? Understood. Roger. Yes, sir, as soon as Roche finished speaking. The replies from the other stormtroopers were instantly transmitted to his ears. Roche shook his metal helmet slightly, and a series of bubbles slowly rose from the breathing valve of the helmet visor. Everyone immediately searched around through the helmet goggles, looking for the sewer pipe in the dark riverbed where the undercurrent was surging. Soon after, team member Gao Chi found the entrance to the pipe, which was only a little over 1 person tall, under a pile of rubble and floating water plants. Roche walked closer and took a look. He found that thick railings covered with rust marks were still firmly standing on it. After everyone slowly gathered around, Gao Qi, who had obtained Rock's permission, pulled hard. He easily pulled the entire metal fence up from the ground and threw it into the mud at the bottom of the river. Immediately afterwards, everyone tried to lower their power armor as much as possible and carefully entered the passage one after another. Chi chi chi. A few minutes later, accompanied by the subtle sound of the black blade tip of a large katachan combat knife piercing through the concrete floor. A large piece of floor, 1 foot thick, along with the metal manhole cover in the middle, was slowly lifted upwards by a metal palm. Roche silently jumped out of the newly cut entrance while supporting the extremely heavy floor with both hands. Subsequently, the stormtrooper squad, gripping large katachan combat knives in their palms, also quickly stepped onto the ground, driving power armor that was not yet dry. Roche, kneeling on one knee, gently placed the heavy floor down. After he raised his head and observed the surrounding environment, he quickly gave a tactical gesture to everyone. The 5 members of the stormtrooper squad immediately activated their power armor. They used stealth skills that could reduce the sound of their footsteps and quickly rushed towards the most conspicuous ancient castle in the center of the city. Roche, wearing a metal helmet, shook his head slightly. He took a deep breath and reopened the special passive ability that was temporarily called Invisible Man. The whole person, holding a large katachan combat knife in his backhand, swaggered along the city streets towards the target location. And by the time Roche successfully arrived at the entrance of the ancient castle, the surrounding sentries, both overt and covert, responsible for mobile reconnaissance had already been completely assassinated by the stormtrooper squad. Roche stepped over a pool of dark red blood that had congealed into ice without stopping and stood in front of the castle gate. He once again issued a low-pitched command to the stormtrooper squad, who had just hidden the sentry's corpse. Continue, except for ordinary civilians who confirm their identity, leave no one alive. The members of the stormtrooper squad immediately split into 2 teams. They quickly sneaked towards the small door of the castle and the top of the city wall respectively. Gotcha. Soon after, the castle gate in front of Roche was slightly opened with a gap large enough to accommodate the power armor. He immediately drove the power armor forward and walked straight into the interior of the castle. At this moment, under the illumination of the yellow lights above, several slightly outdated old-fashioned armored vehicles were facing the direction of the castle gate. The light machine guns shelf on top of the vehicles and the rocket launchers placed randomly were showing a cold luster towards Roche in front of them. But at this time, the soldiers responsible for shooting had long been chopped into pieces of fresh meat all over the ground by the large katachan combat knives of the stormtrooper squad, constantly emitting wisps of rising heat into the cold air. Report, Leader, no one was left alive. The front hall of the castle has been occupied by us. The information report from the stormtrooper squad was transmitted to the communication channel. Roche, who stepped forward, seemed indifferent to the human corpses all over the ground. He turned his metal helmet, glanced around, and said lightly, "This kind of ancient castle generally has a dungeon structure. You continue to clear the enemies in the upper rooms. I will explore below alone. If you encounter enemies or super-powered people who cannot be assassinated, I allow you to use bolters to make a quick decision. After discovering the target, you can choose to evacuate quickly." Hearing Rock's order, the members of the stormtrooper squad unhesitatingly carried their large katachan combat knives. Driving the power armor, they continued to sneak up to the upper part of the castle. Roche also drove the power armor to explore the interior of the castle. After he stepped into a narrow corridor with dim light, he suddenly heard a series of heavy footsteps approaching from far and near. At the same time, within Rock's visor range, an officer in a green military uniform with a big belly was walking towards him, drunk. Roche slightly turned his metal helmet. The magnetic boots under his feet stomped on the ground a few times. The entire tall body rushed towards the enemy like a black lightning that suddenly lit up. The next second, the drunken middle-aged officer was forcefully grabbed by the throat by a metallic hand that suddenly appeared. Before he could even react, Rorschach lifted him into the air. His uncontrolled limbs flailed wildly like a fish out of water. In the blink of an eye, his face rapidly turned red. His eyes rolled back, and saliva trickled from the corners of his mouth, unable to be swallowed. Only when Rorschach felt the officer was completely sobered up did he slowly lower the trembling middle-aged officer to the ground. The metallic hand, clamped shut like an iron hoop, also slightly loosened its grip. "You have only one chance to answer my question. Where have you imprisoned the leader of the resistance, Victor?" Rorschach's voice was deep as he questioned the middle-aged officer, whose eyes were filled with endless terror. The sound of trickling water also came from the lower half of his body. "Cough, cough, cough. That guy is locked in a special room on the second level of the dungeon. If you go forward along this corridor, you will find the entrance to the dungeon. But the commander from the Heron family forbids us from going there, and I don't have the authority to enter or leave that place." At this moment, the trembling middle-aged officer reported to the black metal giant in front of him in great detail. Seemingly afraid that even a second's delay would cost him his life. Rorschach stared at him through the helmet's visor. He also listened to the sound of the middle-aged officer's heartbeat, which was almost bursting out of his chest. "Thank you for your cooperation." As soon as Rorschach finished speaking, the metallic hand, suddenly clenching with force, crushed the middle-aged officer's cervical vertebrae, not giving him too much pain. He casually threw aside the still warm corpse and, driving the power armor, continued to walk deeper into the corridor. Soon after, a spiral staircase gradually sloping downwards appeared within Rorschach's field of vision. Without hesitation, he held the large Katachan combat knife and walked towards the darker depths below, and quickly arrived at the first level of the dungeon. Chi, accompanied by an exceptionally muffled piercing sound. The dark, lightless, large Katachan combat knife forcefully pierced deep into the spine of a sentry guard. Rorschach silently placed the completely limp corpse in a hidden corner of the wall. He drove the power armor forward, continuing to walk into the depths of the dungeon. A few minutes later, after each patrolling sentry guard had been sent into a permanent dreamland, Rorschach also successfully arrived at the second level of the dungeon. He stood at the entrance of the second level of the dungeon. Subconsciously glanced at the life detection instrument inside the helmet. At this moment, within a range of nearly several dozen meters on the entire second level, there was actually only one weak life signal present. Are these guys too confident in their defense system, or do they think no one can successfully get here? That's right. The local resistance has indeed failed countless times. Rorschach couldn't help but mutter in a low voice. He drove the power armor forward, quickly arriving at the special room where Victor was being held. After Rorschach forcibly destroyed the door's access control device with his metal fist, not even a basic alarm immediately sounded inside the dungeon. Thump, accompanied by the heavy metal door being slowly pushed open by Rorschach. The scene inside the special room almost completely entered his field of vision. Within this dim room of only 30+ square meters, semicircular metal structures successively covered the surrounding walls. At this moment, those strange semicircular metal structures were emitting a faint purple light, and extremely complex codes seemed to be flashing on them. And in the center of the room, a black-haired man, with his collarbones pierced and hanging in midair, was powerlessly drooping his battered head. Every inch of his skin was covered with traces of torture and interrogation. The wounds in many places had festered and suppurated, constantly dripping foul-smelling pus onto the ground. "Hey, Heron family bastards, are you here to serve doom again?" At this moment, a weak but firm voice slowly came from below the black-haired man's drooping head. Rorschach did not answer, he just drove the power armor forward. And only completely stopped when he was still a few meters away from the other party. These things on the surrounding walls look like some kind of confinement device, specifically for confining magic or energy. Do you personally have any research on this? Rorschach asked Victor Von Doom, who was hanging in midair, in a deep voice. Zola still went to find outside help? She's still too naive. Doom, with his head drooping, did not answer Rorschach's question. Instead, he said to himself, if the resistance chooses to rely on outsiders to obtain the fruits of victory, then ultimately, Latveria's future will be to become a dirty place where others can do whatever they want, and the people here will no longer be able to get rid of everything weighing on them. Having ideals is always a good thing, but discarding the influence of realistic factors is a kind of arrogance and stupidity. Since you chose the revolutionary path from the bottom up, then you shouldn't have allowed yourself to fall into the current situation. Even if you yourself are not afraid of sacrifice and are prepared, the people who continue to fight for your common ideals have already suffered an extremely painful price for your failure. Rorschach interrupted Doom's muttering in a deep voice. He continued in a calm tone. You are very lucky because you met me, but at the same time, you are also unfortunate because the series of tragic wars that are about to happen in the future require me to harden my heart and squeeze everyone who is willing to fight for the future of humanity. Victor von Doom, are you willing to continue fighting for the people of Latveria and the survival of humanity itself? No matter whether the enemies you will face are rampant heretics or cunning aliens. No matter how desperate the situation you will face in the future, will you still not choose to compromise easily? I remind you as a friend, you only have one chance to answer correctly. At this moment, as soon as Rorschach finished speaking, Doom, who had been drooping his head, suddenly let out a low chuckle. Heh, I think I know who you are. Although I don't understand where your hatred for heretics and aliens comes from, I think I can do the things you require. Especially the painful experience that this failure has brought me has also gradually made me understand that the revolutionary road without overwhelming power has always been illusory extravagance. Doom spoke in a low voice while slowly raising his drooping head. In an instant, a terrifying face covered with festering wounds like knife cuts and axe chops. Even both eyeballs had been forcibly gouged out, was extremely clearly revealed in front of Rorschach. Please save me, guide me, help me, and I am willing to fight for you. Crackling, accompanied by the sound of metal shattering. A metal fist of the power armor, wrapped in energy flames erupting from the elbow, landed squarely on the semicircular metal structure. Boom! As metal debris and countless fragments splashed everywhere. The faint purple light, as if flickering with code patterns, instantly extinguished, and there was no sound anymore. Only then did Doom, who was suspended in midair, subconsciously exhale and slowly say, I know that the Leviathan spy organization supports the rise of the Heron family, and I also know that their Zodiac are all superhumans, but I never knew that they even possessed this kind of mysterious technology that can completely shield magic. If it weren't for the existence of these things, even if I was betrayed by trusted comrades, I wouldn't have fallen into such a difficult situation. The eye-damaged Doom smiled wryly in the direction of Roche, following the sound. He struggled to raise a few slightly trembling fingers and waved them back and forth a few times. Invisible telekinetic power immediately reappeared, snapping the two metal hooks that had pierced his collarbone in half. It also caused Doom's severely injured body to fall heavily to the ground, making a dull impact sound. However, Roche, who was standing nearby, did not step forward to help. It wasn't until Doom, who had groaned, gritted his teeth and climbed up from the cold, damp ground again, barely straightening his scarred spine. Only then did Roche drive the power armor forward. He casually took out a crystal-clear panacea from the storage box of the power backpack. After stuffing it into the other's blood-stained and dirty palm, he said indifferently, This is a healing medicine called panacea. It is a unique super medical method in our team. It can restore your lost eyes and various injuries on your body. If you have any hidden diseases in the past, it will also be cured along the way. Alien technology? Or are you? Does our team possess technological levels that far exceed Earth? Doom, with a solemn expression, squeezed the cold-to-the-touch panacea tightly. He turned slightly and asked Roche, Certain aspects of technology do far exceed the modern era, especially a series of war-related technologies that are beyond the reach of the entire Earth. Roche, who answered, drove the power armor and slowly turned around. He bent down, picked up a complete metal frame as long as 2 feet from the ground, absorbed it to the rear of the power backpack, and continued to say to Doom, However, the technological level in other aspects is just average, so I never reject the use of alien technology. On the contrary, pragmatism that can be used by me is the hard truth of seeking truth from facts. Well, if you calculate the time, my people should have cleaned up the entire castle. Victor, You should also recover from your injuries as soon as possible. Let me make it clear, given the reasons that you and I both know, it is impossible for our team to openly help you liberate the entire country." Before Roche could finish speaking, Doom, whose expression quickly returned to normal, nodded vigorously. He took a deep breath, raised his hand and stuffed the panacea into his mouth, while muttering to himself with a sneer. "Hee, I understand, and I also understand your difficulties. In fact, our resistance army still has blood debts to settle with the Heron family and Leviathan." Hiss. At this moment, the panacea that gradually took effect in his body made Doom subconsciously gasp for cold air. When Doom's eyes were restored and even the injuries on his body were basically healed. The first time he opened his eyes and saw the power armor on Roche, he couldn't help but blurt out a lot of obscure terms related to technology, trying to discuss some things with Roche. Roche barely understood some of it. However, as the other party's questions gradually increased, the difficulty also increased geometrically. With a headache, Roche had to spread his hands and expressed very helplessly. Let the tech priests in the team answer all the questions. Doom must have endless topics to talk about with the other party. Doom, with a shallow smile, didn't say much. He just blinked his regained green eyes and nodded to Roche. Soon after, Roche, driving the power armor, led Doom, who had found a dark green cloak and put it on, towards the entrance of the dungeon. After the two people, who had been silent all the way, successfully arrived at the front hall of the castle. Under the dim yellow light, the stormtrooper squad, whose ceramic steel shells were splattered with scarlet blood, had already returned to their original place. However, on the ground near them, there was also a white-haired old man kneeling, wearing a silk robe. At this moment, the white-haired old man looked at Roche, who was walking towards him, and Doom, who was following behind, with horrified eyes. Rock's communication device immediately received reports from Chieftain and others. The white-haired old man in front of him is the highest officer left by the Heron family in Satellite City No. 3. He is also one of the branch relatives of the Heron family. Roche originally wanted to ask the other party more about the Heron family. But he suddenly noticed, from the moment Doom appeared, his cold eyes had been staring at the other party. Even the expression on his face was as stiff as an unmelting piece of ice. It seems that during this period of time in the past, the white-haired old man, as the highest officer, had tortured Doom a lot. "Doom, he's yours," Roche said lightly to Doom, who was standing behind him, without hesitation. So, Doom, who had obtained Rock's approval, took a deep breath. He slowly stepped forward, and an uncontrollable ferocious smile gradually appeared on the corner of his mouth. Doom bent down slightly, grabbed the white-haired old man kneeling on the ground, and lifted him up forcefully, holding him high in midair. Immediately afterwards, before the white-haired old man could beg for mercy, a series of tragic howls, one louder than the other, quickly resounded around. The limbs of the white-haired old man were actually torn off little by Doom's invisible telekinetic power. After the bloody limbs were discarded on the ground very casually, chi, strands of hellfire, wrapped in the stench of sulfur, suddenly swept out from Doom's palm and quickly enveloped the remaining torso, the dying white-haired old man. In the blink of an eye, he completely burned the other party into piles of black ashes that kept falling. Heron family lackeys who have ravaged Latveria for countless years. This is just my resistance army leader Victor. No, the Victor with ideals has died in that dungeon. From now on, I am the Terrastar Realm Legion's Dr. Doom. Doom, with a solemn expression, slightly raised his chin. He turned to stare at the helmet visor of Roche, and said in a solemn tone. Roche, who had been silent all the time, drove the power armor forward. He raised his hand and took off the metal helmet, clipped it in his arm. A pair of cyan wolf eyes looked down at Doom, who was close at hand, and slowly showed the snow-white fangs in his mouth. Welcome to my team, Dr. Doom, Victor von Doom. The group quickly evacuated the silent Satellite City 3. They began their journey of traversing mountains and ridges towards the rebel army's location. As they spent more time together, Luo Shaw and Doom gradually became acquainted. When the group temporarily set up camp to rest, Doom deliberately engaged Luo Sha in discussions beyond technology. According to Doom himself, his so-called magic should actually be called witchcraft. Most of his witchcraft talent was inherited from his gypsy parents. A gypsy witch and tribal shaman who chose to settle down. The reason Doom started a rebel army in Latveria and launched a revolution. Completely abandoning the comfortable life and bright future he had after studying in America. Wasn't just because his father died at the hands of the Heron family in his childhood. There was also a stubborn obsession that Doom didn't explicitly tell Luo Sha. During his travels and studies, with his extraordinary intelligence, he even gradually deciphered the operational rules of the upper echelons of this world and their dirty secrets that couldn't be exposed to the light. Therefore, the cynical Doom despised those who shouted about light and justice but remained aloof behind the scenes. They would rather watch Latveria or other war-torn areas remain in constant turmoil than offer a helping hand. Those powerful individuals or organizations. This was also one of the reasons why Doom vaguely guessed Luo Sha's origins and identity. And decided to join the team without much hesitation. As someone proficient in a large amount of witchcraft and aware of the existence of supernatural things, Doom naturally knew about the blood cult. It was just because he was concerned about the safety of his countrymen and was short-handed himself. It would be difficult for him to completely eliminate the blood cult alone. Therefore, he temporarily extinguished the idea of going to save others. Originally, Doom wanted to solve the problems in his own country first. But he didn't expect the Terrastar Realm Legion to issue an extermination order against the blood cult in a way that was difficult for others to understand. Speaking of this, Doom changed the subject and asked Luo Sha and his Terrastar Realm Legion why they hated heretics and aliens so much. Luo Sha couldn't reveal many things. He simply selected some things that could be disclosed to the public as conversation topics between the two. For example, he actually inherited the great legacy and part of the technology of an ancient human being called the Emperor. He planned to carve out a more glorious and even golden age-like beautiful future for mankind, and so on, with half-truths and half-lies. Of course, Luo Sha knew that the clever Doom wouldn't completely believe it. However, this was also a way for leaders and subordinates to increase understanding and trust. After all, it's a very interesting thing to know that you are acting, but I also have to cooperate with you to act. Soon after, the exchange between the two came to an end. At this time, Luo Sha, who suddenly remembered something, turned his head and told Doom. In fact, their team is not called the Terrastar Realm Legion. That was a name he came up with on a whim and said casually. If Doom really wants a team name, then now they can publicly declare themselves as the Justice League. At this moment, after hearing Luo Sha's words, the expression on Doom's face first froze slightly. Then, he looked at Luo Sha, who had a smile on his face, and let out a low laugh. About 12 hours later, the group, who traveled during the night and rested during the day, finally returned to the rebel army's mountain stronghold. Now, with the arrival of a team of automatic servo robots. All the underground caves where the rebel army lived have been re-excavated and expanded by Iron Man David. Even large underground caves have been built specifically for gathering meetings and storing supplies. Moreover, even the open space outside is almost filled with neat wood that can be used for heating and boiling water. At this moment, a group of middle-aged and elderly rebels with much rosier faces were under the guidance of Iron Man David. They were constantly familiarizing themselves with the structure and shooting feel of the Terra-I-type laser gun in their palms. Dong dong dong, accompanied by the heavy footsteps from the power armor. Luo Sha, dusty on the ceramic steel shell, and the stormtrooper squad. And Doom, wearing a dark green cloak, slowly entered the range of the stronghold. In an instant, countless middle-aged and elderly rebels immediately put down what they were doing. They rushed forward and surrounded the crowd. These middle-aged and elderly rebels, whose faces unconsciously showed excitement, first patted Doom's shoulder. Then, they bowed respectfully to Luo Sha and the stormtrooper squad in front of them. Luo Sha did not choose to dodge. After all, everyone is now comrades in the same trench. So there is no need to be so estranged, yeah. At this moment, the little boy Kane, carrying a laser weapon on his shoulder, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. He threw down the laser weapon and struggled to move his two short legs, squeezed through the crowd. The whole person plunged into Doom's arms with a smile on his face like a small cannonball fired from its chamber. "Haha, leader brother. I knew Uncle and the others would definitely be able to save you. Okay, Doom, I'll give you 24 hours to rest, and then I'll come to you to discuss things." Luo Sha, who had just taken off his metal helmet, smiled helplessly. He waved his hand to dismiss the stormtrooper squad that had been following him and said lightly to Doom, who was standing nearby. Doom seemed to hesitate for a moment, but he still nodded and did not refuse. He saw him holding Kane, who had a smile on his face, in his arms with both arms. He walked straight towards Zola, who had been hiding behind the rebel crowd. "I'm back. Thank you for your hard work during this time, Zola." Doom, whose mouth unconsciously revealed a smile, stared at Zola, whose eyes were slightly red, and said with a sigh of relief. At this moment, Zola, who was biting her lips tightly with her snow-white teeth, did not utter any words from her mouth. She opened her arms and rushed forward quickly, hugging Doom's broad shoulders very hard. She didn't even care that the pigtail swinging behind her head hit Kane's small face hard. "Ouch, sister. Oh, sorry." However, at this time, Luo Sha, who was alone, didn't bother to watch this kind of bloody scene of family reunion. He carried the metal helmet in one hand and walked towards Iron Man David. "David, prepare meat for 5 people and send it to the cave." "Yes, my lord." Iron Man David shook his metal head slightly. He bowed to Luo Sha, who passed by. He turned his blue light flashing gaze to Doom and the Zola siblings, who were occasionally laughing softly not far away. Then he turned his head and looked at the tall figure walking towards the cave alone, driving the power armor. Slowly getting up, Iron Man David unconsciously let out a fleeting murmur. "Tisk, tisk, this is my lord's destiny." Between the uneven rock walls were installed lighting fixtures powered by the arc reactor. But perhaps it was for the atmosphere and warmth. The large fire pit in the middle of the cave was still completely preserved. As the firelight flickered, strands of vigorous flames constantly licked the sizzling grok steaks through the metal grill. Gradually, an incredibly tempting aroma of grease was released. Next to the fire pit, Luo Sha, wearing power armor, sat cross-legged. He ate voraciously, devouring the meat grilled by Iron Man David like a starving wolf. "My lord, the operating system of the Twin Islands base is gradually getting on the right track. The existence of the shipboard machine spirit Cortana greatly reduces the processing speed of many trivial matters. If there are no unexpected situations in the short term, we can consider using Cortana as the center, cooperating with countless automatic servo robots, to build the central control core system of the entire base. In this way, the efficiency of both production tasks and execution actions will be greatly improved." Iron Man David, with blue light flickering in his eye sockets, handed Luo Sha a plate of steaming steak again. With his mouth full of oil, Luo Sha took it casually, saying without looking up, "If the internal base can do a good job of various defense systems, I have no objection to this. By the way, in order to prevent possible unexpected situations, David, you should personally cast a metal statue of the Emperor and place it in the core of the base where Cortana is housed. Also, select some useful prayers about the Omnizeia that you remember and engrave them at some keynote positions." My lord. Why choose such a cumbersome method? Perhaps, the Emperor is always watching you." At this moment, Iron Man David, who was grilling meat, seemed to recall some unpleasant experiences. It quickly shook its metal head vigorously, staring at Luo Sha and said, "Although our current method is adapted to local conditions, I remember that the Emperor doesn't quite like artificial intelligence. It's hard to say whether he will protect us when we really encounter a situation. I'm just seeking psychological comfort. In addition, the local area may not have electronic demons from chaos, but it may have nanoviruses or other strange things that can produce similar effects. This is also something we need to consider in advance. I don't want to face a machine rebellion or a Men of Iron revolt one day. Sorry, David, this is not directed at you personally, but a necessary concern." Before he finished speaking, Luo Sha suddenly stopped eating. He frowned slightly, staring at the constantly jumping flames in front of him, and muttered with his eyes vacant. Moreover, the last time I performed a miracle, the Emperor also gave me a psychic premonition of a coming disaster. I always subconsciously think about this matter during this time. Maybe, if the prophecy has nothing to do with the local area, then the Chaos forces may not be as far away from this universe as I thought. The Chaos demons of the warp. The speed of the blue light flickering in Iron Man David's eye sockets seemed to increase a bit. It casually moved the sizzling grilled meat on the fire to the side to cool. The mechanical voice it emitted seemed to carry a trace of comfort. My lord, if your concerns are correct, our worst situation is just facing the normal warfare that the Imperium of Man encounters every day. And by that time, the local humans who have never faced terrifying demons will still need you to lead them to continue fighting. Unbearable casualties are certain to exist, but the local humans who have been tempered by a lot of war are no longer infants in swaddling clothes. Sacrifice, the foundation of the Imperium of Man has always been built on sacrifice. This is a perfect maxim proven by countless lives stepping forward. As a loyalist Iron Man, I can tell you with certainty that, in fact, even if the most glorious golden age of mankind is fleeting, some things in the human bones have never changed. This is the fundamental reason why the current Imperium of Man can continue to fight against countless aliens and heretics, and even chaos demons. This is even regardless of which universe, which world. It is an important factor that allows the human species to stand out from countless competitors. The vast majority of humans may be ignorant, reckless, and belligerent, but at the same time, they also possess a strong spirit of courage, fearlessness, and willingness to sacrifice. I personally believe that even the local humans, as long as they are given appropriate time and experiences, will also bloom with the same brilliant light. At this moment, Iron Man David's words gradually plunged Luo Sha into contemplation. Then, he suddenly shook his head. A faint smile appeared between his lips stained with grease. David, you're right. Maybe I'm too worried about some issues. In any case, we will do the preparations we should do. If the development of everything gradually exceeds the original expectations, then it's just a matter of one sentence: meet the soldiers with generals and the water with earth. Moreover, I am not fighting alone, I still have you in the team to help me. Come on, David, more meat. At this moment, Luo Sha's appetite, which had just subsided, returned to his body. With invigorated spirits, he continued to devour the food in front of him. And Iron Man David shook his metal head slightly. It grilled more steaks again, like a wise man who had accomplished his mission. The next morning, the energetic Doomby arrived outside the private cave a dozen hours earlier than expected. He carried a large bucket of sweet soup made from the roots and stems of various plants mixed with starch and found Luo Sha, who had not fallen asleep. The two shared a simple breakfast with a so-so taste, while discussing the next action plan. Doom first expressed his difficulties to Luo Sha. The current number of rebels, whether in terms of combat power or personnel quality, is far inferior to what it used to be. Even with more advanced weapons and equipment, it is unlikely to regain the previous revolutionary success. Moreover, regaining the support of the local people is also a difficult task. Doom himself, who is proficient in witchcraft, is indeed not weak in individual strength. But in the face of the Leviathan's controlled shielding technology, it is often difficult to exert much effect. However, Luo Sha already had some ideas about this situation. He asked Doom, "If you want to remobilize the people of Latveria, how much is the success rate?" Doom frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. He said to Luo Sha very cautiously, "According to my past understanding, the people here can't wait to eat the flesh and blood of every member of the Haran family. Almost every Latverian has a blood feud with the ruling class. I cannot guarantee 100% success, but the probability is not low. It is worth a try." Luo Sha, squinting his eyes, nodded slightly. He took a deep breath and said with a calm expression, "If that's the case, then let's try some public opinion offensives first, and then improvise according to the subsequent development. David, come in here." Soon after, the people of Latveria suddenly noticed Anyone with a cell phone or other electronic device would receive countless messages and materials sent by someone identifying themselves as the Resistance. The content of the materials was also diverse. Initially, they were mostly black material about the Heron family and photos or videos of their extravagant lifestyle. When the people had heated discussions with each other and even gradually became accustomed to it, every adult would once again receive restricted materials about the Heron family's army carrying out terrifying suppression and bloody massacres of innocent people in rural towns and even satellite cities. During this period, the messages would also include some video footage of the Resistance fiercely resisting the Heron army, accompanied by very sensational and tragic music. The vast majority of the Resistance's footage was a fake scene that Luo Xia had Doom lead the Resistance to create temporarily. As time passed and many inexplicable emotions gradually fermented in people's hearts, the Heron family's ruling power inevitably became aware of these things. Their rulers immediately chose to implement a physical internet shutdown across the entire country. At the same time, they also sent troops to force people to hand over their electronic devices, trying to eliminate the fatal threat that was shaking the foundation of their rule. As a result, bloody conflicts between the two sides inevitably continued to be staged according to the established routine. At the same time, automated servo robots equipped with network signal amplification devices were also quickly mobilized by Iron Man David from the Gemini Island base. When the conflicts between the local people and the Heron army intensified, a considerable number of people who had not yet handed over their electronic devices once again received information from the Resistance. However, this time the information they received included how to use nearby buildings and roads to maneuver and resist, and how to use the limited resources around them to make explosives or simple weapons, and so on. As a result, a small number of men, women, and children who already harbored hatred for the Heron family took the lead in stepping onto the streets of various satellite cities. They held crude weapons or explosives in their hands, and launched more intense bloody conflicts with the Heron family's ruling army. Prior to this, many disguised veteran Resistance members had already infiltrated the satellite cities and were waiting for an opportunity to act. The bloody conflict had just begun, and some important facilities and armories in the satellite cities were instantly blown into the sky. At the same time, stormtrooper squads armed with laser sniper rifles also arrived at the satellite cities where the riots were taking place, carrying several automatic machine bees, accompanied by bursts of soaring explosions and the clamorous shouts that rose and fell. The highest officials and military commanders of several satellite cities were basically named one by the automatic machine bees and stormtrooper squads and given the highest courtesy of a headshot death. The army personnel who had temporarily lost command were either beaten to death by the angry people who took to the streets, or they turned around and became smiling turncoats. When the development of everything had basically settled, Doom, as the leader of the Resistance, also led a part of the Resistance into a satellite city that was closest to the mountain base and had the strongest rebellious sentiment. Through continuous speeches and promises that were kept, he once again won the strong support of the vast majority of the people. Even those who had originally maintained a wait-and-see attitude joined in. As a result, the Resistance army, which had increased in number, immediately rushed to the next satellite city non-stop. A week later, 6 of the only 8 satellite cities in Latveria had returned to the hands of the Resistance. The internal situation of the remaining 2 satellite cities and the only capital, Heron City, was also turbulent. The propaganda offensive against every local person has not stopped at all. The stronger the Heron family's rulers oppressed the people, the more intense the resistance they received. A few days later, Luo Xia personally led the stormtrooper squad to launch a decapitation operation against the 2 satellite cities other than the capital, Heron City. With Doom's addition of a large number of witchcraft blessings and special stealth methods, the people wearing power armor easily took the heads of the local highest officials like invisible ghosts. Even the Heron army, which was already panicked, was cleaned up one by Luo Xia and others. When the angry crowds, who could no longer suppress the anger in their hearts, finally gathered, after rushing into the areas inside the satellite city that belonged to the Heron family, They only saw corpses everywhere and a very terrifying and tragic massacre scene. In the end, the resistance army that joined Luo Sha's command only took half a month to regain the fruits of victory that far exceeded the past few years. This is certainly not to say that the local resistance army are all waste. In fact, Doom has been doing well in the past. If it weren't for Leviathan's forced intervention, it would only be a matter of time before he led the resistance army to successfully rule Latveria. After all, Luo Sha only took advantage of the local people's hatred and disgust for the Heron family's rule. Coupled with a continuous propaganda offensive and the crushing of technological levels, he has the achievements he has today. As for why Luo Sha did not directly carry out a decapitation operation against the Heron family who were cowering in the capital city to eliminate future troubles, it was because he listened carefully to Iron Man David's advice. The Heron family has never been a threat. The Leviathan organization hidden behind them is the culprit. And now, Luo Sha, who has maintained great patience, has also given the other party enough reaction time to mobilize manpower. In human terms, it means that the previous series of actions were actually just fishing. My lord, all the accounts of the Heron family and Leviathan's transfer of benefits have been forcibly closed by me, and the money and wealth in them have been taken over by the shell companies of Imperial Heavy Industries one by one, and losing all the financial income of a small country is also an unbearable big thing for the Leviathan Intelligence Agency. That is to say, their remaining zodiac signs and corresponding manpower will definitely gather in the only remaining Heron city, which is also one of the reasons why I deliberately kept the internal network signal of the city. After all, closing the door and beating the dog is a good way to get things done once and for all. Inside the mountain base, Iron Man David, whose eyes were flashing blue light, slowly said to Luo Sha's tall back. At this moment, Luo Sha, wearing power armor, leaned down slightly. He picked up the blood scythe with green light lingering on its sharp blade from the newly delivered supply box and kept looking at it. Very good, I am even more looking forward to Leviathan being able to bring me some surprises. David, where is Doom? Why haven't I seen him lately? And hearing Luo Sha's inquiry, Iron Man David seemed to hesitate for a moment, but he still replied to Luo Sha in front of him. After Mr. Doom finished dealing with the complicated matters at hand, he has been using his free time to pull the Stormtrooper squad to conduct technical research, mainly studying the overall structure of the power armor on their bodies. He seems to want to independently build a power armor that belongs to him. Accompanied by a booming sound that tore through the air, a giant, dark red metal crab claw suddenly clamped down on a terrified male servant. Before the expression twisted man could even beg for mercy, the metal crab claw mercilessly split the frail human body in two. After a series of steaming internal organs fell onto the floor with a splattering sound. A scolding from another woman finally arrived belatedly. Enough, Uvarov, as Cancer of the Zodiac, are you planning to completely degenerate like the Virgo Demon Slayer? That bio-armor isn't for you to indiscriminately kill the innocent and vent your anger. However, before the woman's words could fade, the terrifying humanoid, encased from head to toe in a humanoid crab-like, dark red bio-armor, instantly turned its gaze. The middle-aged man's face, the only part exposed, squeezed out a twitching, manic smile from his warm blood-stained lips, and he said in a hoarse voice, "Evelyn of Ares, when did you become so kind? As I recall, when you were driven out of the African continent by the Wakandans not long ago, didn't you also have the Capricorn brat release a wide-range nerve toxin in order to escape, accidentally harming thousands of people?" Chi. At that moment, a narrow, sharp, giant ice cone flashed through the air in the blink of an eye. It collided head-on with Cancer's dark red bio-armor, causing the opponent's towering body to stagger back several steps. Oh dear. Why are you getting angry? I was just stating the facts. What a spoilsport shrew. Cancer, his mouth almost splitting to the ears, stared intently at the obese woman in the distance, who was exuding a faint aura of coldness, and shouted loudly. At this moment, inside this ancient palace belonging to the Harlan family, in addition to the two men and women currently bickering, There were also 5 men and women, some sitting cross-legged, others playing with alien firearms with their heads lowered. And these people were the Leviathan Zodiac who had just arrived in Harlan City, the capital of Latveria. To be precise, it was the remaining 7 Zodiac, excluding Gemini, the leader of Leviathan. However, just as the animosity between Cancer Uvarov and Ares Evelyn grew increasingly intense. Buzz buzz buzz, accompanied by a crisp buzzing sound that echoed throughout the empty palace. The various gold ornaments on each Zodiac member simultaneously emitted a cold, emotionless male voice. Stop it, enough with the squabbling. The Leviathan organization is currently facing a huge crisis of life and death. If you agents are still in the mood to fool around, then I will now let you experience the consequences of disobeying orders. Sure enough, as the Leviathan leader's words echoed in everyone's ears. The other 5, who had been indifferent to the conflict between the two sides, even intending to watch the excitement, stood up one after another. They either comforted with words or shielded with their bodies, barely managing to dissuade the tense Cancer and Ares. After the atmosphere among the group returned to peace and harmony, the cold voice from Gemini resounded once again inside the palace. Recently, we have successively lost Taurus Agent Magnum, Virgo Agent Demon Slayer, Sagittarius Agent Nitro. Even Leo Agent Titania is missing. Judging from the severed arm she transmitted back, she is likely dead. I first admit that unilaterally dispatching agents to contact the Terrestellar Legion was a very wrong decision, which led to Magnum and others paying a painful price for it. But Titania's attack represents the Terrestellar Legion launching a war against our entire Leviathan organization. Moreover, because these events happened too closely together, I even suspect that the mastermind behind the Latverian resistance is the Terrestellar Legion. This is also one of the reasons why I hurriedly mobilized you back from all over the world. Latveria's existence not only provides our Leviathan organization with invaluable financial income, but the very foundation of our Leviathan's existence is here. Now that the situation is urgent, I won't hide it from you. The location of the base where you usually teleport to is actually in the depths of the sea near Latveria. And the teleportation technology controlled by our Leviathan is just advanced technology that was accidentally deciphered from an unmovable alien spaceship. Even the bio-armor worn by Cancer, and the alien firearms in Aquarius's hands, are just abandoned equipment left behind by the former owners of this alien spaceship. This is a valuable asset that we must protect, whether for Leviathan or for yourselves. Therefore, Harlan City cannot be allowed to fall. Latveria must also be controlled in our hands. If necessary, I allow you to let go and engage in destructive combat. I will find a way to deal with all the consequences and troubles caused by this, understood? At that moment, Gemini's cold words came to an abrupt end. The other Zodiac members, including Ares Evelyn, immediately looked at each other in dismay. As the second-generation Zodiac, these people had never heard of any secret events involving the organization's internal affairs. However, at this time, Cancer Uvarov, who had never had his agent replaced and had the longest qualifications, couldn't help but let out a mocking chuckle. Hee, our dear Gemini leader still likes to paint you newbies a big picture. Uvarov, as the Zodiac member who has been with Leviathan the longest, how much inside information do you actually know? Now, in order for everyone to work together to protect the organization's valuable assets, why not reveal some to us? Ares Evelyn, a middle-aged woman, surprisingly changed her previous temper and personality. Her plump face looked at Cancer Uvarov with a gentle expression. At this moment, the other Zodiac members also focused their attention on Cancer's bio-armor. Hee, since you all want to know, then there's nothing I can't say. 25 years ago, Nitro, Gemini, and I, in order to escape the constant pursuit of the Strategic Scientific Reserve, also known as SHIELD, accidentally discovered a long-sunken alien spaceship in the Black Sea. According to our later calculations, the specific time when this spaceship arrived and crashed on the seabed of Earth was about millions of years ago. Yes, at that time, the human race was still a group of stupid monkeys. Although we later discovered that our reckless behavior was not much better than that of the monkeys of ancient times. You must be wondering why Gemini never steps out of the so-called Leviathan base. which is the internal space of the alien spaceship, right? That's because he can't leave that damned place at all. He, who possesses energy-based superpowers, was forced to merge with that alien spaceship, and is constantly exploited by the alien spaceship to maintain the energy it needs to operate. You thought Gemini was protecting Leviathan's wealth? No, he's actually protecting himself. The current Gemini is that alien spaceship. As for the ending that I and Nitro, who went together, obtained, you have already seen it. Nitro became a moving time bomb, and everyone thinks that this bio-armor is my often unscrupulous source of power. But this is a mobile prison that I can't get rid of at all. From the first day I put on this armor, I could never take it off again. As Cancer's voice fell, he, unable to restrain the insane smile at the corner of his mouth, quickly drove the bio-armor and leapt up. Uvarov waved two giant, dark red metal crab claws and pounced on the trembling servants and the direct descendants of the Harlan family. Are you pitying me? Are you mocking me? You monkeys really fucking deserve to die? In an instant, countless severed limbs and scarlet blood continuously splattered onto the ornate floor of the ancient palace. The sounds of begging for mercy and screams rose and fell, echoing all around. But not a single one of the other Zodiac members wanted to step forward to stop him. This Cancer of the Zodiac, who had been insane for many years. 10 kilometers outside of Harbin City, beneath a desolate hill. Rebel soldiers, clad in heavy bulletproof vests and wielding ordinary firearms, huddled motionlessly on the withered yellow grass. Each of them had their eyes slightly closed, entering a state of rest to conserve their energy. Meanwhile, a group of middle-aged and elderly rebel soldiers wearing military green carapace armor and carrying Terra-I laser weapons were scattered around the perimeter, maintaining a vigilant combat stance. Crack! Soon after, accompanied by the heavy sound of footsteps crushing the soil, R.O. Shaw, clad in black power armor, led the stormtrooper squad as they slowly arrived at this location. And at the very rear of the stormtrooper squad, followed a tall figure clad in silver power armor. The surface of the ceramic steel shell was also shrouded in a dark green cloak. That was Doom, the leader of the rebellion, who had just used witchcraft to forge the skeleton and outer shell. Furthermore, in coordination with the electronic muscle bundles and power backpack transported by Iron Man David, supplemented by a partial arc reactor, successfully creating a set of power armor. In fact, it was fortunate that R.O. Shaw had no intention of keeping secrets. Otherwise, just the research and scientific analysis of the electronic muscle bundles and power backpack would have taken Doom some time. Doom is indeed a super genius among humans. But he also needed a learning process and continuous experimentation to implement everything. At this moment, Doom, wearing a metal helmet, glanced at the resting rebel soldiers through his visor. He stepped behind R.O. Shaw and said softly through the communication device, "Lord R.O. Shaw, when will we launch the final attack?" According to news from inside Harbin City, the Zodiac 12 of the Leviathan have arrived there and massacred most of the direct descendants of the Harbin family. These guys don't seem like normal people at all. I'm afraid the longer we delay, the greater the consequences will be. Hearing Doom's inquiry, R.O. Shaw, also wearing a metal helmet, said without turning his head, "Doom, be patient. If it weren't to launch an attack, why would I have you gather the rebel forces? 7 superhumans, and we don't even know what their superpowers are. Our actions must be cautious. You lead the rebels to occupy the important facilities in Harbin City, disrupt the structure of the enemy's army, and eliminate the commanding officers. I and the Stormtrooper squad are responsible for decapitating those superhumans. However, to prevent any unexpected situations from occurring, I have already sent hundreds of autonomous machine bees and autonomous servo robots equipped with heavy firepower to the outskirts of Harbin City. If the entire battle doesn't go smoothly, then my Intelligent Control Legion will forcibly enter the field. At that time, you can assess the situation and support us. I hope your witchcraft can play a greater role." As soon as R.O. Shaw finished speaking, Doom gently shook his metal helmet. He propelled the silver power armor forward. As Doom moved, the rebel soldiers who were originally resting with their eyes closed immediately opened their eyes. With determined expressions, they got up from the cold ground, their gazes focused on Doom's tall figure. At this moment, Doom peered through his helmet's visor. He gazed at the nearly 1,000 elite rebel soldiers in silence for a long time. He slowly raised a metallic arm, his hand clenched into a fist. Doom took a deep breath and shouted loudly at the crowd in front of him. Today is the good day for us to liberate Latveria. Today is also the first day for us to end the Harbin family's reign of terror. I cannot guarantee that every one of you will live to see the end of this war, but I believe that you are not just fighting for yourselves, you are fighting for those lost relatives and friends, and also for the future of your families and children. From now on, we must work together to create a stronger and more prosperous Latveria. Come on, my brothers and sisters, for the beautiful future we long for, let us launch the final and most difficult war of liberation against Harbin City. At this moment, Doom's words sparked enthusiastic responses from countless rebel soldiers. They raised the weapons in their palms one after another, and roared deafeningly at Doom in front of them with excitement. Liberate Harbin City, long live the rebel army. Liberate Harbin City, long live Doom. Liberate Harbin City, long live Rorschach. Rumble. Rockets wrapped in trails of smoke quickly streaked across the sky and slammed hard into the outer walls of Harbin City. While the exploding flames splashed countless gravels, they also successfully took out the enemy's firepower points. As the oldest capital city in Latveria, the outer walls of Harbin City are about 20 meters high, and the thickness of the walls reaches 3 meters. Whether in ancient or modern times for rebel armies attacking by ground, this will be a war fortress that may not be successfully entered even with countless painful casualties. However, at this moment, in the center of the battlefield where countless firepowers were crisscrossing, Doom, clad in silver power armor, levitated in the air with his invisible and powerful telekinesis. His hands quickly outlined a series of witchcraft arrays that were difficult to distinguish with the naked eye, and without hesitation, he released the strongest witchcraft he could currently control. Boom boom boom. The next second, accompanied by earth-shattering tremors like an earthquake, the closed entrance of Harbin City, dozens of meters away, completely collapsed along with most of the city wall, instantly forming a terrifying break like a chasm. At this moment, both the rebel army and the enemy army seemed to be shocked by the grand scene presented before them. Even the sound of gunfire between each other temporarily stopped for a moment. Thump! Doom, who was originally suspended in midair, quickly landed. His two magnetic boots heavily stomped into the ground below. Doom shook his slightly trembling metal arms vigorously. He took a deep breath and roared in a deep voice to the rebels through the communication channel. What are you all still standing there for? The assault team immediately organizes an attack. Don't let the enemy completely react. Before Doom's words were finished, one after another, rebel veterans wearing carapace armor rushed out of the concealed positions without hesitation. While pulling the trigger of the laser weapons to fight back against the enemies above, they swarmed towards the city wall break where the dust had not yet settled. Rebel Army Battle Report. The progress on the front battlefield is going smoothly. The city wall has been breached by me. The urban warfare inside the city is about to begin. Doom, wearing a metal helmet, shook his slightly dizzy head. He quickly sent a battle report notification to the communication channel. The next second, a mechanical voice from Iron Man David slowly echoed in Doom's ears. Received, my lord has arrived at the target area and is about to begin the decapitation operation. Rumble, accompanied by the explosion and gunfire coming from the edge of the city wall. The Valkyrie transport, in stealth mode, glided over the central area of Hailing City at an ultra-low altitude. In an instant, Rorschach, wearing black power armor, and the stormtroopers' squad descended from the sky like metal statues. Boom boom boom. 12 magnetic boots heavily crushed the ground below. The moment everyone landed, the terrifying roar of the bolters echoed all around. Within 100 meters, teams of hailing soldiers were running along the street towards the city wall to provide support. In the blink of an eye, they were torn into pieces of flesh and blood scattered all over the ground by the bolters that streaked through the air. Rorschach, wearing a metal helmet, turned his gaze, glancing over some ordinary civilians huddled on the side of the street with their heads in their hands. He scanned the hailing palace, located a few dozen meters away, through his visor. Suddenly, he raised the frost fang in his palm and waved it forward with force. Assault formation. Advance. Hearing the order, the stormtroopers squad quickly tightened their grip on the bolters in their hands. They rushed towards the entrance of the hailing palace without hesitation. Squeak. Just then, accompanied by a harsh sound of metal twisting. Ha ha ha. A large figure wearing dark red alien armor rushed out of the dimly lit interior space, accompanied by a low, sinister laugh. Boom boom boom. Instantly, bolter fire from the stormtroopers squad quickly covered the alien armor. While preventing the opponent from continuing to advance, countless explosions erupted. The next second, the Bane brothers in the squad raised their hands and drew out roaring chainswords from the back of their power packs. They pounced on the enemy like mad bulls, just as Rorschach, wielding the frost fang, was about to rush up to attack. Ding ding ding. A series of slender ice cones exuding a cold aura suddenly shot out from the hands of a middle-aged woman like civilian on the side of the street, and continuously bombarded Rock's power armor. Rorschach quickly turned around and waved the frost fang in his palm. He relied on the power armor's ceramite shell and the broad, gleaming axe blade to withstand the constant barrage of slender ice cones. Rorschach also immediately adjusted his footing. Driving the power armor, he launched a terrifyingly fast charge towards the attacker. At the same time, he unhesitatingly pulled the trigger of the bolter in his other hand. The ice-type superpower user, who looked like a middle-aged woman, quickly condensed a very thick ice wall in front of her, trying to use it to block the explosive bombardment of the bolters. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Just then, accompanied by a buzzing sound suddenly cutting through the air, a slender young woman with a curvy figure stepped on the roofs of nearby buildings and leapt into the air with agile movements. Then, a yellow long whip, completely condensed from energy, extended outward from the palm of her hand. Subsequently, it rapidly wrapped around Rock's thick arm that was pulling the trigger like lightning. Rorschach, who was charging and firing, reacted quickly. He immediately stopped pulling the trigger and raised his hand to dodge. However, the other party's goal seemed very clear. It was to limit Rock's long-range attack ability. The yellow energy whip suddenly changed its direction of attack. The incredibly flexible whip head swiftly wrapped around the metal gun body of the bolter. Then, it swung upwards into the air with force, HMPH. Rorschach, who let out a cold snort inside his helmet, abandoned the bolter without hesitation. He took advantage of the momentum to drop his empty hand and pulled a freeze grenade from his waist. After his thick thumb flicked open the ring, Rorschach threw the freeze grenade at the young woman who was still in midair without even raising his head. Crackle crackle. The freeze grenade, which burst in midair, instantly sprayed out a large number of crystal clear, sharp ice shards into the surrounding space. The young woman, who had no time to dodge, was instantly pierced through most of her body by countless sharp ice shards, spraying out a large amount of blood. The rapidly spreading aura of frost completely froze her into a completely stiff corpse, falling heavily towards the ground. At the same time, Rorschach, who had quickly arrived in front of the middle-aged woman. Without hesitation, he raised the frost fang in his palm and slammed it down on the thick ice wall covered with bullet hole marks. Crack, accompanied by an extremely crisp cracking sound. The thick ice wall was forcibly split open by the frost fang's sharp axe blade and tilted towards the ground beside it. The ice-type superpower user, who looked like a middle-aged woman, was completely exposed within Rock's visor range. Just as the panicked opponent wanted to release more slender ice cones to block Rock's advance, and tried to retreat backwards to create combat distance from Rorschach, the quick-reacting Rorschach suddenly stretched out his other thick arm. The metal palm with its 5 fingers spread open forcibly pinched the middle-aged woman's round head. Ah! Rorschach didn't even give the middle-aged woman a chance to beg for mercy or activate teleportation. He just clenched his metal palm with force, accompanied by a crisp sound of bones breaking. The other party's entire head shattered like a ripe watermelon. Thump! Rorschach casually threw down the limp corpse without a head. He quickly turned his metal helmet and glanced at the few ordinary civilians who had survived by chance. Then, his gaze turned to the humanoid crab that was repeatedly entangled with the stormtroopers' squad. At this moment, 5 roaring chainswords were constantly cutting into the dark red alien armor. Countless extremely sharp monomolecular sawteeth continuously splashed out a large number of sparks. But they were still unable to truly embed themselves inside the opponent's metal body and cause necessary damage. On the contrary, the opponent's 2 huge metal crab claws, which were constantly waving, had already caused considerable damage to the stormtrooper squad's power armor. Even the black ceramite shell was covered with terrifying traces of battle damage. David, Blood Scythe, Roche, wearing a metal helmet, instantly issued an order to the communication channel. He casually slung the frost fang on his back, and began to charge towards the humanoid crab's direction. At the same time, the Valkyrie, which had been circling in stealth in the sky above Hailing City, quickly changed its flight direction. And once again swooped down to the area where Roche and the others were located at low altitude. Buzz buzz buzz, accompanied by the subtle sound of the hatch door reopening. An automated machine bee, carrying the blood scythe in a mechanical pincer, suddenly rushed out of the Valkyrie. And flew quickly towards Roche below, thump thump thump. 2 heavy magnetic boots repeatedly crushed the ground of the street. Roche, driving the power armor, charged towards the humanoid crab in front of him like a speeding black lightning bolt. Boom! At this moment, the humanoid crab, which was fighting back and forth with the stormtroopers' squad, had no time to make corresponding adjustments. The slightly bulging back of the alien armor was forcibly hit by Rock's heavy shoulder armor. In an instant, the opponent's entire huge body flew horizontally towards the ground in front. Swish swish swish. The next second, the blood scythe, which was being transported by the automated machine bee, fell spinning from mid-air in time. And was grabbed by Roche with a quick hand, die. In the blink of an eye, the sharp blade mouth, surrounded by green light, unhesitatingly chopped down heavily towards the humanoid crab that had just fallen to the ground. Thank you for your support. In that instant, the xenomorph armor of the crab-like humanoid, which could not be cut or embedded by the monomolecular teeth of the chainsword, was forcibly penetrated by the sharp blade of the blood scythe, surrounded by green light. Huh? It actually worked? Good. The crab-like humanoid, suffering a terrible blow, suddenly raised its voice, emitting a strange and shrill cry. Holding the blood scythe in both hands, Roche quickly stepped forward. He slightly rotated the sharp blade and pulled it horizontally with force. The crab-like humanoid, still firmly lying on the ground, was instantly and completely split in 2 at the waist by the blood scythe. Ha ha ha. So good. So damn good. At this moment, the crab-like humanoid that had just been bisected at the waist seemed to feel no pain at all. It simply let out a burst of almost maniacal, joyful laughter. Then, the opponent forcibly used its 2 huge metal crab claws to flip over its upper body, from which blood was constantly spurting from the severed area. Even on that twisted and ferocious face, a look of relief and liberation faintly appeared. At this moment, Roche, holding the blood scythe in one hand, stepped forward. He slightly lowered his head, looking down at the half-crab-like humanoid in front of him, and asked in a low voice. Leviathan's Zodiac? Which one are you, Cancer? Ha ha ha. Thank you. I'm finally free. I can finally get rid of this damned alien armor. The middle-aged man wearing the xenomorph armor said to Roche with a smile. Aries Evelyn and Pisces Julia have already died in your hands. Libra, proficient in close combat, and Aquarius, skilled in magic, have gone to the area where the city walls are located to command the Haran family's private army in resisting the rebel army's attack. Scorpio and Capricorn are hiding inside the palace. Be careful of their most skilled ambushes and traps, especially Scorpio's alien gun. At this moment, hearing the many pieces of information continuously revealed by Cancer, Roche, who had just raised the blood scythe, once again lowered the necromantic weapon in his hand. He stared at Cancer's bloodshot eyes and suddenly said, "If you just want to live, then choose to offer me your loyalty. I can spare your life and even heal your injuries." "Live? I think you've misunderstood. I don't want to live anymore, I'm too tired. I want to fall into eternal slumber peacefully. As for revealing the information about the Zodiac to you, I'm just afraid of being too lonely on the way, so I plan to have them accompany me. Heh, I don't have much time left. There's one last thing. Leviathan's leader, Gemini, is hiding in an alien spaceship. You can easily teleport there using the golden ornaments found on the other Zodiac members. The method of use is very simple. Don't worry, Gemini, who has been drained of energy by the alien spaceship for years, no longer has any ability to resist. However, before you kill Gemini, please tell him one thing. Uvarov has settled his debts with him. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Cancer, whose mouth gradually widened into a grin, slowly let out a final joyful laugh. The next second, his laughter stopped abruptly, and his eyes widened, losing all sound and breath. Standing next to the corpse, Roche stared at the internal organs slowly flowing out of the severed area of the body and couldn't help but shake his head. They really are a bunch of lunatics. At this moment, the stormtrooper squad, carrying chain swords and bolters, regrouped behind Roche. They were just about to reorganize the team and launch another assault towards the Harran Palace in front. But Roche, holding the blood scythe in his palm, waved his hand to stop them. Then, while driving his power armor to search for golden ornaments on the corpses of the Zodiac members nearby, he issued an order to Iron Man David through the communication channel. Soon after, the Valkyrie, cloaked and hovering over Harran City, once again changed its flight direction. Boom boom boom. Along with the roar of the vector engines, miniature missiles quickly streaked across the sky, leaving behind extremely clear trajectories. The twin-linked lascannons located under the wings also continuously coordinated with the miniature missiles, launching a devastating and terrifying bombardment towards the Harran Palace in front of everyone. At this moment, the continuous barrage of fire gradually caused the architectural structure of the entire Harran Palace to collapse inward. Chirp chirp chirp. At this moment, a tragic, dying wail and a continuously spreading red nerve toxin gradually sounded from the hidden corners of the collapsing palace. Immediately afterwards, a figure holding a silver alien gun, completely enveloped in burning flames, frantically rushed out of the dust-filled palace entrance. However, before the opponent could launch an attack first, the terrifying firepower from the stormtrooper squad completely blasted the attacker's fragile body into scattered pieces of flesh and blood. At this moment, Roche, wearing a metal helmet, slowly got up, driving his power armor. In his palm, 3 differently shaped golden ornaments, with traces of blood still clinging to their surfaces, were emitting a faint metallic luster. Boom boom boom. The Valkyrie transport ship, with its vector engines emitting a low roar, roared past overhead. My lord, Mr. Doom is being constantly besieged by 2 Zodiac psychic users. Judging from his current combat state, Mr. Doom seems to be at a disadvantage again. However, the overall offensive progress of the rebel army is still smooth. 2/3 of the important facilities have been completely occupied. Do we need to mobilize the Smart Control Legion outside the city for corresponding support? There's no need to mobilize the Smart Control Legion. Our battle here is over. Hearing Iron Man David report on the battlefield situation, Roche casually put the 3 golden ornaments into the storage space of his power pack. Without hesitation, he said in a deep voice to the stormtrooper squad in front of him. The Bane brothers will go and check the palace ruins to prevent that Zodiac member from not being completely dead. Everyone else, come with me. As soon as Rock's voice fell, he tightly gripped the blood scythe in his palm and drove his power armor to quickly run towards the area where Doom was located. The stormtrooper squad, divided into 2 teams, immediately carried out the corresponding orders. The Bane brothers, exchanging nods, rushed into the palace ruins with their chainswords. And Gauchi and the others followed Roche to provide necessary support. A few minutes later, having just arrived at the designated street, Roche saw through his visor. A strong black man, whose offensive movements were as agile and swift as a cheetah, was swinging Doom, wearing power armor, back and forth like a broken toy. On the black man's muscular waist and wrists, metal bands specifically used to shield against witchcraft and magic were constantly emitting a conspicuous purple glow. Hey, nigger! Standing in place, Roche let out a loud shout full of insults at the strong black man. He instantly drew the Frost Fang from behind his power pack and threw it forward without hesitation. Thank you all for your support. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.